Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter at SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth will keep you safe.
Hey, everybody. I will never grow tired of that introduction. I love it. So, welcome to the Safety Doc. It is a brisk 63 degrees down here in the North Star recording studio, and I am glad that you are here tonight for our Monday show. So we have the show Monday at 8:15 Central Time, and then also Face Validity Fridays. Yeah, Face Validity Fridays. 9 o'clock a.m. Central Time, where we go through some headlines and say, hey, like, what is making sense here and what is not? Welcome to Texas Bullet. Welcome to Andrew and Solitude Surfer. And here we go. Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the Joker in what Batman Returns. And here we go. So, hey, Robert, welcome to Robert, who 020 oil. So I do have an engine which benefits from synthetic 020, but Robert, thank you for being over here. So I appreciate that. So Flying Rich, hey buddy, yeah, throw another line. I did. So I heat my house with wood, so I had to make sure that the house was going to stay warm here for the next 3 hours or so. Not that this show will necessarily go that long, but yeah, I still have. I'm pretty well paced. But I had 14 cords of firewood ready for this year. So yeah, the house is warm. Where the fireplace is, and then everything kind of circulates throughout the house. But the cats will always hang out in there. It's so funny because they just turn upside down and they're just like soaking up the heat, and it's kind of the life of a cat, I guess. So yeah. So yeah, thanks, Flying Rich. Cool intro. So I did that myself. And the voiceover, though, that is not me. That is Retro Voice. He's on Fiverr, and Retro Voice did the intro and outro. Also did the commercial for School of Airs, and is doing the commercial for the Velocity of Information. First of all, his voice is phenomenal, right? Like it just kind of stops in your tracks. And he's been on Fiverr for a long time. But his in working with him, his work is absolutely phenomenal. So yeah. So hey, Jim is telling me I talk too much. Oh no, sorry about that. So I'm trying to. I guess maybe on this show, because I'm the only one on here, I have to keep it going. So, but yeah. So all right. Well, yeah. Hey, Rich. Love the firewood. I love the firewood heated. So yeah. So. Well, Flying Rich, yeah, he is over. Here's the. I'm just going to put this out there because I've worked with him over the years on the intro, the outro, and commercials and some other things. Retro Voice over on Fiverr, so does a great job. So a few things today. I have a lineup for this show, and we are going to be. The title of this episode is "Why Words Matter: The Lexicon of Crisis Communication." Lost lives and crashes. As a retired school administrator, there were times when I needed to deliver very bad news to staff, students, and parents, and also working in crisis communications, having a background as a speech language pathologist, also in studying linguistics and the impact of messaging, verbal messaging, for example. We're going to talk about that today because it is somewhat of an art and somewhat of a skill set that you need to be coached on this. It's rare that someone is going to be an effective communicator during a crisis situation just on their own, organically. So I'm going to give you some of the tips that I learned, right? And some of the things that I share. And this is important because, you can be in a situation where you are the one who is introducing bad news to your family or your friends. Or also, if you are in a situation when bad news is being communicated, that you will kind of understand, I guess, what is conveyed in the message, and what might be guarded or protected, or like what is good messaging and what isn't. So yeah, we will go through that. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that. So good. All right. Well, yeah. So thanks again, Robert Flying Rich. And so I'm at 741 subscribers here for the Safety Doc podcast. But let me go over here because I want to give Flying Rich the moderator. So and also Robert, I want to give you a moderator so you guys can keep things clean here in the chat, because ultimately this is a meant to be a family-friendly, scholarly show. So if you see things kind of getting out of hand, please go in there and do what you need to do. So, so yeah, a couple things here. All right. So up on the left, I have three monitors in front of me. So right, the recording monitor on the left are the show notes, and on the right is the monitor as things are appearing on YouTube, so I can just track all of those things. So yeah, Flying Rich, yep, G rated. So yeah, if you guys, yeah, it's funny because when I presented on PBS, so I presented live on PBS twice, PBS TV, and that's a very extensive process to go through and have things approved ahead of time, and like to do the rehearsals, everything has to be timed out. And I was at the live studio audience, early, so I did the entire presentation and made sure it hit the timing. But they go through after you do the live presentation, and then they close caption everything. And in addition to that, they have to put it before a rating board. So, you get rated G or PG or PG-13. All of my stuff was G, but there is this very extensive process that then takes a few months before it gets re-released on PBS. So I didn't learn about that until I did my first PBS presentation. And then by the second one, yeah, I was old hat. Like I knew all of that stuff, right? But so yeah, the doc stuff is all G rated. Even in my book, both of my books, I think in the Velocity of Information, which is coming out, I think there's one swear word I use, which is a quote from somebody. And that's out of 70,000 words. And then in School of Airs, there were none. So yeah, very, very family friendly compared to just what we hear on the news or in the background on the news. So, hey, it is SAS Too Many. Good evening, gang. So 1 week from now, SAS Too Many will be on the show. So I will get that up soon. I already have the show header built for it, but SAS Too Many is going to be on the show talking about life after traumatic brain injury, and then also examining the media for accuracy and kind of an epiphany moment that SAS had in his life. SAS One Too Many on that. So we've been working and putting the show together. It'll be a great one. 1 week from today, SAS One Too Many on the Safety Doc podcast. So Flying Rich notes. So yeah, actually, so I have an entire blog post all ready to go for this show that I'll make sure I get up tomorrow. And my new cell phone arrived today, so I have an appointment for tomorrow to have the current phone migrated to the new phone, and then they'll put the screen protector and stuff on. All stuff maybe I could do, but it's just like right in town here. But yeah, my phone was starting to, the battery was just starting to go bad on it. And, it's I've had it for quite a while, stuff like that. So it's time to do that. My daughter benefited from that because we upgraded her phone to her phone. We got a couple of years ago for her, and she would say, hey, like, can I get something newer and things like that. So she's earned it. She is a terrific student and great kid. So a few things. Velocity of Information. So my book coming out April 15th is on pace, right, to come out April 15th. We settled on, not settled, but we picked a cover for it in the past week. So that I can't show it yet because it's copyrighted, right? They have to buy the image from Getty, is who has the image. But they're in the process of doing that. So they narrowed it down to 5 covers, and then this one stood out to me, and then 22 people actually weighed in on the covers and stuff like that, and they put it down into small size and say, like, if you're scanning through with this, catch your eye. And like, so anyway, I love it. It's a great cover. And it will be worked into the commercial then that Retro Voice is making for me. So all good things. And now I have this artwork up on my right hand side. I have this like a poster size, but it's printed on this kind of hard foam board. You can get them at Walmart for like 50, $60, these custom imprints. And my first book right here, School of Airs, is over there, like in almost like a 3x5 type thing. It's really cool. And then right next to it will be the velocity of information. So, by the way, School of Airs is the most honest book about the $3 billion school safety industry. This is still available for Christmas. If you have you're interested in how people are spending their money on school safety, or parents, right? How the whole school safety process works. It's not as refined as what you think it is. But if you know the right questions to ask and what to observe, you can contribute to your school being a safer environment. So, yeah, School of Airs, the book that took on the $3 billion industry and won, because this actually became a PBS special in 2019. So it's really cool. I was on John Crump Live today. So, yeah, check out John Crump Live. And he did an awesome... he did an awesome show art. Like, he had the still image of me, and I'm like, that is really cool. So I need to ask him if he can just send me that image, because I only have images really like where I'm facing the camera, or like the professional, headshot for the book and stuff like that. I don't really have like this kind of in the moment. And it was funny too, because PBS has this awesome cover, this image of when I presented in 2019, where I'm looking off in the crowd and I have like the slide flipper in my hand. And it's just this incredible picture. So I asked him, can you give me that, or can I buy rights to that image from you, which is it's an image of me right at the studio in the show. And ultimately they said no. So, but get this, they said we can bring you back and we can recreate the shot. And I'm like, well, the thing is, though, I'm older. Like, I don't look like I did in that photo, and like I have to come to the studio, which I appreciate. Like but I was just hoping they would say, yeah, like here's the image, because I wanted to use that. But I do have a couple images that like people in the audience took and things, but that was just like the perfect image. It just conveys like this kind of sense of authority. I think like Laura Sullivan on NPR like has something like that as like her thumbnail or something, this similar type image. So, but anyway, hey, so yeah, I am awaiting a new yeah, Andrew said, laugh although you can't use an image of yourself. Yeah, that was a little weird, because I was like, hey, can't we work something out here? And then also I was thinking, well, can I buy this image? Like, is there something here we can do? So, but no, and they're great. They were absolutely great to work with throughout the whole thing. But yeah, and then so going over in the chat, Flying Rich wrote, 3 billion is a crazy amount of money, but chump change in the Biden budget. Yeah, 3 billion in school safety seems like a lot, and it is a lot. Although, when you look at the money that schools were getting for pandemic relief stuff, and in my area, one school spent all that money, a few million of their cut on a new artificial turf football field for pandemic relief. But yeah, it is so much of that goes over toward these fortification and things, and it's all the book School of Airs. So Rich is saying, I swore I would not do another $1,000 phone, but did it for the whole family again. Yeah, like all of our phones we had for like 3 years, they were all off of the amortized payment thing. But now with the family and especially my younger daughter doing more kind of traveling and stuff like that, we wanted to make sure that we had upgraded. Plus, like our phone is our camera. Like we don't have a digital camera or a 35 millimeter or anything, like nothing. So really, we're also just always investing now. That's the investment in the camera for everything that we do. Robert wrote, yeah, it can be expensive, phone plans and 5 phones here. Whoa, I swore also. So yeah. Yeah, and they're trying to like convince me, well, I'm not going to do it, but they're like, hey, like you could repurpose like this one phone and then you could have this 4th phone line. Like I have no need for that. Like I'm all good. Like it only costs $5 a month. I get it, but like I have no need for this extra phone right now. So we are all good. So yeah, PBS, we can get that for you. So all right, we can do like this email campaign to PBS. But so I mean, they're really great, right? They're really awesome. So, hey, let me check here. We got a message live out of the studio. And it is. So, all right. I have to check that. I'm not real-time tech, all of that, all great on that sale. But anyway, so we can screen cap that. So flanger. Yeah. So I think I could get the image, but then it's the whole copyright thing and stuff like that. So it's I don't know. It's funny. Even like with my book. So the publisher buys the image as they did for School of Airs from Getty, right? They buy the license. And then in my contract, they allow me free use to use the image as long as like the title work and stuff like that is on it. The two can't be separate. They never give me like the image separate from the title on it. And but technically, like, I mean, I would have to be able to prove, right, that I had permission to do that, which I just would have to provide from the publisher. But that stuff is getting tracked more by these automated algorithms and stuff like that. So I would expect it would probably trip, and I'd have to like prove, yeah, I have rights to use it. So I am. And Bacon said, all this time I thought PBS stood for peanut butter sandwich. Yeah, me too. So PBS. I have fascinating stories to share from my time on PBS sometime. Actually, I think I'll just like dedicate a show to like what it's like to present on PBS before a live audience because I've done it twice and the things that they tell you and how it's like, and then what it's like preparing for that, like kind of that whole day. And then like when it's done, what you see on TV is much different than obviously what kind of happens. And one of the things too was when they had to check my presentation. So you brought it in on a thumb drive and then you went through it with them and then they locked it in a case, right? So like you couldn't alter it in the hour before your presentation. So they approved it and then like that was live. Like so, some interesting things. And then I can watch PBS to this day and point things out. Like that person wasn't supposed to like, go up and point toward the screen or something like that. You're never supposed to look over your left shoulder. Like, they tell you all these things because then it messes up the way that the camera angles are. They have to like try to edit that out. So I learned I always follow the rules on PBS. Like it was a damn good guest and well researched, and I had my timing down and it was good. Do you get your hair and makeup? I'd want the set feel. So did you get this is all pro lemon time. Did you get your hair and makeup done? I did that on my own, right? Like I'm a guy. So I'm not doing any flashy makeup stuff, but I did, get my hair. Well, I mean, I really, I don't know. I mean, I got a haircut, like I timed it a week before. So it grew out a little bit and stuff like that. But yeah, actually, it was funny because I wore a sport coat that I bought off of eBay for both my shows, the same sport coat, like for $20, an Oscar de la Renta. And there's a 3-button. So when you wear that, it sends this message that you are really in control, right? And it's so funny because because most sport coats are 2-buttons. So when you wear a 3, like it really stands out. So it's funny because I think people in the audience are like, well, it's kind of a fashion thing. Like it's kind of a projecting authority here. I'm like, no, I'm $20 off of eBay, Febrezed it instead of dry cleaned it, and we're all set to go. So yeah, all pro Leamington. So I've been on, like newscast, right? So brought in after different, school safety things. And it's funny because like the reporters always like are diving off off of screen before, and they're always doing their makeup like before they go live. I'm just sitting there like, no makeup for me or no nothing or whatever. Like I'm just, and yeah, they spend like a lot of time. It's right off screen, like and then they also have this like other area they go, but um, I'd get a kick out of that. So yeah, I've got a couple of pictures like from when I've been on some major media, which is pretty fun. So um, yeah. So Flying Rich is saying, "Hey, you're killing me with that eBay sport. Every sport coat I own is off of eBay." And it's hilarious because now with people working from home, the sport coats are up for sale like crazy because nobody wants these. And I'm pretty, if I get an Oscar De La Renta 44 regular, most of the time it's a spot on fit unless somebody's altered it, right? But for like $20, I can take the gamble and get like 5 of them, and maybe like 4 will be fine. So um and there's actually, you can buy like the tuxedo coats for like less than that, like 10 or $15. And I'm thinking, wouldn't that be something to do? But yeah, the sport coat stuff. And I always wear a sport coat when I teach at the university, always, no matter what the weather, even if it's, like more of an informal class or session or whatever. I always do that because I think it does convey this sense of respect for the position and the institution. And I think we get away from that too much today. So, so I am also awaiting. We have a vehicle that we ordered, and we've been tracking it across the the U.S. since it's been released from the manufacturer, and I know where it is. It's like two hours from my house right now, and the dealership is like, we're not sure where it is. So I was able to call the manufacturer and say, like, here's the VIN number. Like, where's this vehicle? And they're like, okay, like we'll find it. And in like 10 minutes, they were like, here's where it is. And here's like what's next. Like it should be to you soon, like 5 days or something. And, but so I called the dealership and I'm like, here's where the vehicle is. And they're like, how'd you know that? I'm like, I talked to one of my friends in the FBI and they just ran a ping on it. And they're like, what? And which isn't true. Like I just made that up, right? I'm like, yeah, they pinged the vehicle through its GPS type thing. So they like knew where it was and stuff like that. And they're like, holy smokes, man. I'm like, I'm the safety doc, for gosh sakes. You'd expect that, wouldn't you? So, so let me hit the chat here and then let's get into the meat of today's show. Thanks everybody who's a moderator here for keeping things clean. I appreciate that. So, El Pro Limiton, by golly, you've earned that right. So let's add you. So you are now a moderator, buddy. So Rich says, I haven't worn my tux in 15 years. So you and John, you could do an episode, the tux episode. So a tuxedo. Yeah, I haven't worn one a long time. So sport coats are a really cool look though, with jeans, and the fact that now you can pull it off really cheap. Like if something happens to the sport coat, it's like, well, not a big deal. And people notice, right? Suits were so cheap in 2020. I've always said now, all pro Limiton. Yeah. Flying Rich, you should break it out for the cry. Yeah. Rich, my local dealership is so useless. I like my local dealership, but I don't know how like they can be so uninformed on where this vehicle is, because when I ordered it, they said, oh, we'll send you a portal and you'll be able to log in and you can see every step of the way. You'll see it being made. You'll see it like being shipped. None of that happened. Like, and which is okay, because I don't really need to see like the vehicle being made. But I'm like, where is it? Because it was supposed to be delivered. It's late. I'm trying to kind of have a contingency on a vehicle, which I've sort of sold, right? But I'm not going to release this other vehicle that we have until like this one is in my driveway or garage. And they're like, yeah, it's in transit. I'm like, what does that mean? Like, how do you not know where it is? So then when I pull out my connections with the FBI, like, here's exactly where it is. Like, as of then, they're like, holy smokes. It's like, get it up to your dealership now. The Mallory report already getting tracked and you don't have the car. Haha. So, it was kind of amazing too, because I didn't have to really sell the argument too much, like of saying, hey, like I'm the owner of this vehicle, but I haven't taken delivery yet. I mean, I just had to give basically the VIN number and say, where is this vehicle? Which kind of in my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, if somebody asked me that, I'd be wondering if they were planning on going to that location to like try to pick up their vehicle or, intercept it, like, you're halfway down or something like that. I just need to know when this thing's going to get here, right? Like, just what is the destination date? It's so crazy. Like I said, it's literally, it's 2 hours away. So we'll see how long it sits there. Everyone comes to my oil shop instead of dealership. Robert. So I won't publicly trash him, but I actually went to another county to buy the same brand because my local dealer's not so good. So yeah, sorry about that, Rich. Like my local dealer is terrific, and bought another vehicle from my local dealer a couple of years ago. Serviced everything through the local dealer, and it's like the same guys since I started. So it's not turnover either. Like this is the same crew. So building up that experience and having that positive experience and stuff like that. So it's good. And hopefully it maintains, right? Because who knows, something gets sold or something like that, it just goes to hell. But so when I was writing School of Heirs, the Rethinking School Safety America, I talked to parents who had their children killed, their children were killed in school violence, right? So, and when I was writing the book, I specifically contacted some of these parents and said, I'm writing a book about school safety, and I'm taking on the industry, right, about vendors and kind of how this narrative is all upside down, and a lot of money is being just thrown out the window. But I do not want to write something that offends or somehow is tone deaf to parents who've had children killed in various school safety situations. So I specifically asked, I gave chapters of the book, to parents to read, and they said, no, you're on. I'm not feeling that this is offensive, that this is overstepping a line. And I said, because I need this book to be punchy and powerful, but I am not at all intending for this to be dismissive or anything of that nature. So that was this member check. I didn't want to encroach right on the dignity of those killed in acts of violence or upon the survivors and family. But when I had these discussions, right, with parents, one thing they said to me was, when people tell us we're sorry for your loss, we're sorry that you lost your child, they said that is like a dagger, right? When they hear that, because they're like, we didn't lose our child, like our child was murdered, our child was killed, or our child's life was taken from us in this bus accident, right? So I'll get into that, but they said that's always was something that would just sting, right? When people say, I'm sorry that your child lost their life. And I changed the way that I, referred to student deaths, right? If I didn't say loss of life, loss of life in general is kind of a weird way to phrase things when you think about it. But that was one thing across parents that they conveyed to me is just please, in your book, in your work, like help people understand to not say this to us. So, yeah. So what I'm going to get into right now is, and this will be out in a blog post at Safety PhD tomorrow. It's already written. So those of you who know, those of you who don't, this show releases in video here on YouTube. It releases an audio, which is leveled on SoundCloud, not SoundCloud. Sorry about that. I used to have a show on SoundCloud, and then I thought SoundCloud was going bankrupt, so I moved everything to Podbean. So, but anyway, the show is at Safety PhD. You can find the audio and you can download the show. So if you download it and listen to it, it's leveled. So if anything you hear is like hot mic or soft mic or something, everything comes out leveled. So if you're like doing a long drive or walk or hike or something like that, you're going to listen to leveled audio. And then I have a blog post that's about 700-800 words. So if you go back it'll have some of the links in it or some of the main points that we talked about. So this is episode 160. So thank you so much for supporting the show. 741 subscribers, which is up 240 this month. So I really I appreciate that. It looks like I'm going to get to that 1,000 subscribers, and now it's just a matter of getting hours, right, to monetize. And so yeah, I think I'm at 1,500 viewed hours. So I need to get up to 4,000 viewed hours. So if you guys can help me with that, I appreciate it. So so yeah, Bacon wrote, "Dude, where's my car?" So yeah, but so the dealership totally thinks they already think this ahead of time, right? They already think like I'm close, like with all these multi-jurisdictional agencies and stuff like that because of School of Heirs, and I'm kind of a nebulous character, right? Because they don't really know what I do. They know I retired early, and they don't really know when I come in there what I do. They're just like, oh, like you're working on another book, or like we saw you on PBS or something. Like, yeah, multi-jurisdictional task force here. So I'm like, I know exactly where that vehicle is. But yeah, so here's one of the things. And Bacon, thanks for sharing my my website. So the first thing is that I have bad news to share. If you are the bearer of bad news, okay, it is very important to not do a big wind up into this. You're not what Dennis Eckersley of the Oakland A's, like doing a 45-second wind up on the mound before you throw the pitch, when you're delivering bad news, you're throwing the pitch right at the person. So you're going to beat them with this bad news. Like, it's just the way that it is. So this is called the Chris Voss method. And let me put that down here. Chris Voss is a retired FBI negotiator. So negotiator, I can't see the keyboard. I don't type that well. So you can find his stuff on YouTube. One of his popular books, Never Split the Difference. So but yeah, the Chris Voss method. So you're not doing your audience any favor by trying to ease them into horrific news. So if people already know that they're going to be receiving bad news, it's a bus accident, or it could be an active shooter event, a fire, whatever it is, right? You don't want to give this long pitch. So here's what you do. Instead, you begin with this. You begin with saying, I have bad news to share. Those are the first words that you say. I have bad news to share. And then you pause. Then you're setting people up. You're getting them in the frame of mind that, okay, the next sentence is going to be really, really bad, right? Like I'm braced for it. I have bad news to share. And, this could be, if we lose a loved one in our families, if somebody, has some sentinel life event that's gone on, some, losing of a job or a house, or, usually, it's a personal illness or whatever it is, I have bad news to share. You don't want to get in with something like this. Okay, let's say you come up to the podium and you're to deliver news, or you're with your, you get your family together and you say, we had a fast response. Everybody worked hard. We did everything that we could. There was just too much going on. People are like, okay, like I get it. Like, what's going on? Like, all of that is superfluous. Like, you don't need to tell people that, and it just drags things out. So what you do is you just start out, whenever you're delivering bad news in your professional or personal life, say, I have bad news to share, and then pause and give it 5 seconds so people can, okay, they know that the next pitch, like that was the pitch, that was the chin music that was up in, right by their face. The next one is going to beam them. Like, this is it. This is the news that's going to hit them. So the second sentence, so your first sentence is, I have bad news to share. Your second sentence is actually what would appear on the title of a forensic paper on the event. So if someone's writing a paper about what had just happened, like they're studying it, like this would probably be the headline on that paper, like, 6 months from now. So let's say that there's this bus accident. Okay. I'm the school superintendent. I do this with my students, right? I teach superintendent legal issues and I practice this with my students. So first thing, I'm a superintendent. I'm up at a podium. I'm like, I have bad news to share. Then I pause. The second, students and staff were involved in a bus accident on their way to a field trip. So that's your second point. Okay. You clearly convey what had happened, that they were involved. It's a bus accident on their way to a field trip. The third sentence is the information known at the time. So it's what you know as you come up to that microphone. And it's centered on the well-being of those involved in the incident. You're not talking about the weather conditions, or you're not talking about you're talking about the people. And this has to be an I statement. Okay. So it has to be knowledge that you know. You are now conveying as the authority, the person in charge for this. So here's what this would look like. So let's do this. So let me do the first three sentences. I have bad news to share. Pause. Okay. Students and staff were involved in a bus accident on their way to a field trip. Okay. Here's the I statement. I have been in contact with State Patrol and was informed that some occupants of the bus have been transported to hospitals. I have no information about the types of injuries or potential fatalities. Okay. So you've just, in three sentences, conveyed the message, right? And then the fourth sentence in that, what you follow up with is telling people what to do. And it could be, for example, you're telling people don't drive to the scene because emergency assets, ambulances, fire and all of that are working to get people to emergency, facilities. So please don't go there. And maybe you can stay in the in the high school commons or in the auditorium, and we will then be providing an update in 30 minutes or 60 minutes. For example, we will learn where students and staff were taken, which hospitals, which facilities. And then that's it. Like that is literally, that's a 90-second to 2-minute presentation. That's it. You're not taking questions because you don't know anymore at this point, and if you open yourself up to questions, they're just going to flow in, right? How many students were on the bus, and, can you tell us anything else? Like, you've told them what you know. Like, this is what I know at this point. This is the information. I'm in contact and being, updated by, for example, State Patrol. I will share more information in 30 minutes. I will come back to, this podium, or in 60 minutes. And also, like, if, parents and family, if you stage in the gymnasium or at the auditorium or something, we will be sharing information with you as soon as we have it on where people are and how you can then, get to those facilities and so forth. So again, one of the things that I left out in this, right, is, and I'll get to this later, is I'm not talking about how this affects me, right? I'm not winding this up of saying, what, as a school administrator for 20 years, I've had, situations where I've had to deliver bad news, and this has really pained me. This has been occupying my mind here for the last 30 minutes. Really, like, people don't want to hear that. It's not about you, and yet, like, a lot of people do this today. We'll get into that. So anyway, we got this 90 seconds. I have bad news to share. Students and staff were involved in a bus accident on their way to a field trip. And the I statement, I've been in contact with the local with the State Patrol. They've informed me some occupants of the bus have been transported to hospitals. I have no information about the types of injuries or potential fatalities. Point 4, tell people what to do. Wait in the auditorium. I will be back here in 30 minutes and 45 and an hour. You're not going to have more than an hour, but with more information. Or if you're waiting in these areas and we get more information, such as where people have been taken, like, we will get that information specifically to you. So boom, right there. So let's move on to the next part. First, let's check over in the Chris Fall. Hey, I wrote that. So, all right. Address. No. All right. So, lost their lives versus had their lives taken. So, this is an important point to note, right? So, if you say, yeah, they lost their lives in a parade crash. What? Like they lost their lives in a parade crash? Tell me, I don't understand this. They lost. So, um, it's different it's always better to say they had their lives taken. Even if it's someone who drowned, right? They had their life taken, due to a drowning, right? Versus like they lost their lives. So, this is big, right? They had their lives taken. They had their lives taken. It's a resounding point of unison in parents of children that have been killed in accidents or school intruders, or they had their lives taken, or through an aggressive illness or something like that. That their life was taken by cancer. So, to say this child lost his life, that implies like some culpability on the part of the child, right? Or this person lost their life, and it almost puts it on par. And people will say this, like when I hear that, it sounds like it's like a lost pair of socks. It's like, I didn't have these socks come out of the dryer. So I assume at some point they'll come out, but they didn't come out this time. And that's not the way it is, right? It's never that way. So to say like somebody lost their life is inaccurate, and it's really harmful. And it's not benefiting anybody in that situation. So I don't know what's going on around here. So Man Against the Masses wrote, no multiple cameras angles tonight. No, I can't do multiple camera angles unless I do a pre-recorded show. I think I think there's a way with the software, but it doesn't look very good to kind of switch in the moment. So, but yeah, if I do again a pre-recorded show, I can put in as many camera angles as I want. So, yeah, so those are special episodes, when I do those. But thank you, Man Against the Masses, for being here. And Shelter in Paradise, lives taken implies that the taking was akin to theft, death itself being the burglar. Hey, that's insightful. So thank you for posting that. And Bacon wrote, not going to lie, I've been sad over losing socks to the dryer. So I have lost a number of socks to the dryer too. So I don't know where they end up. Man Against the Masses. Doc is live, not doing this isn't a premiere. So in a premiere, I can do that. So I tried it. So premiere, I can always get down to 60. I can get it at 60 minutes. So some people prefer, like a shorter show. So then they get into that 60-minute time slot. And then I can do a few things. Like one is, if I don't edit these shows, I lose those skills, like, to put in the intros and to do the fades and kind of, cutting things out. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So that's why every once in a while I need to do a premiere just so I don't forget my skills. And actually I forgot when I did the last premiere, which turned out well, I forgot to put the show image like up on the screen initially. So I got to create like a little checklist here. So it casts the blame on the cause of death, the verb taken. So shelter in death. Oh my goodness. Shelter in Paradise. Yeah. So, what people say is, hey, we don't find lost lives, like, right? So if somebody has lost their life, it's not this, well, suddenly, hey, we found them. Yeah. And it also, when you say lost, if you're an official saying, police, if you're the city mayor or whatever, or news media, right? If you're saying lost their life and it was clearly that they were killed, you're intentionally blurring that media, right? you need to be explicit in that, of saying they were killed. Like, they were killed when somebody drove a vehicle over them and inflicted injuries, or they were killed in whatever, but they were killed. Like, they didn't lose their life. So that's something: lost their lives versus had their lives taken. So let me move to another point here. The words crash, attack, and tragedy. So, and these obviously are very fresh in my mind because I live in Wisconsin, and the Waukesha Parade massacre occurred a week ago on Sunday, where 6 people were killed when a person drove his SUV intentionally through the parade and hit people, right? So, crash, attack, and tragedy. So news media throttles or measures headlines per their agendas. It's the Overton window, right, where they feel they can get away with a lesser, more measured, tempered language versus if they need to be. It depends which agenda they're trying to go with. So the whole thing. For example, crash. So in Waukesha, for anybody who's not aware, which is 2 hours away from me. The incident in Waukesha where somebody drove their SUV and accelerated throughout points of that, and intentionally swerved and hit people throughout this parade route and killed 6 people and injured, I believe, 40 others, and several are still in the hospital. That's being called a crash by contemporary media, right? So there's most of the headlines out there: parade crash. Well, that parade crash kind of describes like maybe somebody who had a seizure and lost control of their vehicle and, inadvertently brought harm unto people in the parade, right? That's what I would anticipate with crash. Or if there was maybe some vehicle malfunction with a vehicle in the parade and, it ended up hitting some people. So that's what I would interpret if I was reading crash. Like, that's, oh my goodness, like this was kind of a no fault situation, right? But that's not what happened at all. And the thing is, like, there's video evidence of this. Hundreds of video takes from people at the, who were in attendance, and then also the measurement of speed and the fact that one of the police officers was pounding on this, driver's window, of telling him to stop and shut down, and he kept going. So this is an attack. It's not a crash. And then the middle ground is always the word tragedy. This was a tragedy. So that's where you can almost put anything as a tragedy, right? But you have to be explicit, right? This was an attack. This was an intentional attack. It wasn't an SUV that attacked people either, or crashed into people. It was a person that used an SUV to intentionally crash into people. So just think of if your loved one died there, or your spouse, or, one of your kids, or people you knew who were there and they're injured, they're still in the hospital. You're like, what in the world? The media is portraying this. Now, my local media here in Madison, Wisconsin, what they did 2 days after this, and I have this recorded and I actually timed it out. What they did is they said, they thought, well, we have to cover this, right? So in 2 days after, they did a feature, which was about 100 seconds long, which was the main story based on this. And they had the feature of all of the folding chairs and the water bottles and hats and things like that had been left at the parade site, and how they were reassembled at like some gymnasium or something, and people could come in and claim these things. And then they interviewed one person, and they said, well, this is kind of, and they're putting words in their mouth, this is like a reunification, right? Like, of kind of bringing a closure to this. And the person's like, I guess. And, what a sham. And I emailed immediately and I said, this is garbage. Like, it's garbage. Like, everybody, this is very intentional. Like, you need to be interviewing and finding out about these, not only the people who had their lives taken from them, but the people who are hospitalized. Like, that's the story. It's not about people, oh yeah, I'm able to find my folding chair, and now everything's fine. So it was a horrible piece of coverage that was done, but it also conveys, like, right, the media isn't going to take this on and appropriately state what has happened. So that's where like people like us, right? We need to get in there and hold them accountable and say, this is garbage. This is absolute. And you start to see it right now. The language is changing. The word attack and the word intentional is starting to come in the last like 1 or 2 days where it was this parade crash. So let's go over to the chat, and then I have some other stuff. So let's go over to the chat. So this is from SAS Too Many. A car crashed in the parade, sad beyond sad. Yeah, and I mean, so intentional, right, of media to do this. But I mean, the thing is, right, we have hundreds and thousands of people who are at this parade, and who also have video evidence and then their own testimonial evidence of what they saw. They saw this vehicle like slow down and then specifically like speed up and swerve side to side. So it's not that your narrative, right, your media narrative of you're trying to convince people matches the authentic narrative that people have on the ground. But people need the hard truth, man against masses. I agree with that. And I think it helps hold people accountable, and it also recognizes, that the authentic severity of the event, right? You're not sugarcoating it. And that was one thing when I would contact specific media members. I don't know, they never got back to me, but I would say, you are intentionally, choosing to misrepresent this, and you are further eroding your credibility. Like anybody there, and I knew people there, right, who said this wasn't at all the situation. And so agreed, man, at the masses, that's too many. You'll take my 3-hour plus streams and you'll like it. That's bacon. So Friday nights. B3 Outdoors. Hey, buddy. I can't believe some in the media kept blaming the SUV. Yeah, the SUV, just over and over and over again. Like this SUV. So just complete garbage. If you turned on TV and you're misinformed, I'd rather be uninformed. So Sass wrote that. Sass will be on the show next week. This is a valid point. Like Aaron Clary. So my friend Aaron Clary, CaptainCapitalism.blogspot.com. Just that I don't watch the news anymore, Dave, because the news is just garbage. And I feel the same way. I feel the news is inaccurate, misleading, and not in depth. And I wrote about that in The Velocity of Information, the Orville Dam crisis in 2017. The dam was possibly on the brink of collapse because this main spillway had eroded and it was starting to erode back. Juan Brown, who lives near Orville, went up with his personal plane and was like doing basically a 5-minute podcast on this. This is serious stuff. Like the media needs to be up here. If this thing fails, like this whole area is wiped out, plus like 5 feet of water for Sacramento. And I believe it was Juan, a citizen, as journalist, who forced the media to actually get up there and cover it authentically and not do this Olay 60-minute second piece about, oh yeah, the water is raising at the dam and the spillways, cracked halfway down and has deteriorated, stuff like that. So man against the masses wrote this testimony. I feel it is a duty to myself to do the research and find my truth. So it is. Yeah. And again, in the Velocity of Information, that's strongly themed in that book through the 10 interviews and through building the member check network, an entire section devoted to that of how to find out and use I observe versus they said. So it is a phenomenal book. I can't wait for it to be out on April 15th. I'm so thrilled, for that book. And then hard copy, paperback, which gives a better entry point, for cost, and then ebook. And then also it will be an audio, but that is at a later date. It will be recorded in April, but it won't be released until a little bit later, as per the publishing agreement. I still think it's a win because School of Airs, I didn't agree to do an audiobook, and now I've got this audiobook coming out through like an actor, right, who's on TV right now. So pretty cool. Andrew wrote, I'm shocked the media isn't calling the SUV a gas guzzling SUV. Right. Because why not? Yeah. An internal combustion engine SUV, right? Like it feels really weird to be buying a vehicle right now, like in the next few days, like my vehicle should be here. And Just having all this media stuff of saying like internal combustion engines, they're not going to be sold in 10 years. Like, God, the vehicle I'm getting rid of is 14. It's hard to believe like this is the last. This could be the last one. Bacon wrote, or Sast wrote, my point was it's choose no news versus their news. Okay. Yeah. Thanks, Sast. So no news versus their news. Yeah. Their news is right. It's paid for. And there is no such thing as in-depth journalism anymore. I mean, if you get like, hey, we're doing an in-depth piece, that might be 2 nights where it's 80 to 90 seconds. And I say this like objectively, if you go in and you record these things and you measure the number of seconds that is devoted to whatever topic, it could be crime in our downtown area, smash and grab, or deaths along this road because of drag racing. I mean, big topics. It's about 80 to 90 seconds. And that's it, right? That's it. And after 2 days, it's like gone. So, as you said, sometimes, the no news approach is much better. And then how you inform yourself, again, the velocity of information gives a real good playbook for that. If you can get 4 or 5 people that you know and trust to tell you what is going on in their setting. So like you're saying, like what, so for example, somebody in this chat, I'm not going to name them now, but they might be on my show at a point. They've done a thorough job of analyzing cargo ships off the coast of LA and monitoring those ships over time. And then, kind of keeping the spreadsheet. So they can inform like what is actually happening with this cargo shortage to a better degree than, like a news headline. Oh, like, how many ships and delays and whatever. Well, like how many ships, like what are the names of the ships and how long have they been out there? And like someone could actually track that, which one person here is doing. So if you can get 3, 4, 5 people around you in different areas to tell you, here's the price of food in my area. Here's where we're out of quarters. There's a coin shortage, or they're only letting you use credit card, or everybody has to wear a mask now. Like you get a pretty good feel for kind of what's going on versus like the media, right? Or people also saying, yeah, I was like, my doctor's still accepting regular appointments and, I don't need to, nothing elective's been canceled here. I haven't been issued papers to drive somewhere. So that is, again, the Member Check Network. It's a great chapter. And when you read about Brian Bowden in the Bronx and Charles Mack in Pittsburgh, University of Pittsburgh Med in that chapter, those are just vibrant, real life accounts of what was happening, for example, back in 2020. It's really good. So here's something. So on September 12th, the day after September 11th, September 12th, 2001, the headline from the New York Times. Okay. So I'm going to copy this because, I just want us to think about this and post down below. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. This is the Safety Doc, right? And 741 subscribers. On my way to 1,000, which is great. Need more watch hours, so I appreciate that. But yeah, please subscribe. Safety PhD has everything over there. So on September 12, 2001, let's think about the headlines that came out in the US in the major newspapers. So I went back and I was reading through the major newspapers. And the headlines were very angry and accurate. Okay. Angry and accurate is how I would say 20 years ago. So here's what was in the headline for the New York Times, all in capital letters, right? Bold. US attacked, hijacked, jets destroy Twin Towers and hit Pentagon in day of terror. Okay. Now at that time, it's a day later. So jets, like there isn't enough information to kind of indicate like it's Al Qaeda or whatever it was, the source of that. But like US attacked, jets destroy Twin Towers, hit Pentagon in day of terror. So that's a pretty aggressive headline, right? Now, if that was written today, right? If that was written today, maybe we'd be looking at this for a headline. So I'm going to be posting this right now. So what do you guys think here? I mean, maybe this is the headline if it's posted today. Planes crash into Twin Towers and Pentagon. Unknown numbers lose their lives. There would be newspapers who would run that headline without a doubt. They would run that headline if September 11, 2001 happened today. So again, we see this softening, intentional softening of messaging, um, which is not identifying the degree of the incident. And then also when you do that, I mean, there's this whole thing, right? People don't know then how serious things are if everything you convey to them has these very softened, nondescript terms with them, right? They're not gonna easily separate things out when you're always giving them news which is very measured. And I think people like everybody in China, Andrew Bacon, and you guys are going to be like, forget this. Like, we know what happened. Like, this is garbage. So the news loses its credibility. So we talked about the word tragedy. Tragedy is a catch basin for all disasters. Eventually, the reporters will catch on to this, right? If they start covering things, if they just default to tragedy, it's kind of the safe ground. It's a tragedy. This is a tragedy. The whatever is a tragedy. 9/11 is a tragedy. So it's a word that's used by weak-willed journalists and editors who are afraid to assign a cause to an incident. It's people who are weak-willed, no backbone, no spine. Use the word tragedy, get out of here. That's absolute garbage. Get out of here. Take that game with you. It's out. I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. That's coward language. So immediately you hear the word tragedy. Tragedy is coward language. Yeah, we're not going to have that here on the Safety Doc Show. I don't believe in that at all. If I even start to use the word tragedy, right, I'm going to think and say, what really happened? Like, this isn't a description. This is a catch basin, pillow word that I'm trying to use here to soften or just, make it seem like I'm giving credence to it. So I don't use the word. I stop if that word starts to come up in my mind and I'm like, what am I really trying to convey here? So that's the thing too. Like, if you're using tragedy, it's a tragedy and all of that. Well, do not, like, that is a weak person's way out. You're better than that. Like Andrew, Sast, you guys are better than that, right? And that's where, like, velocity of information really, again, with School of Airs and school safety, but velocity of information, you get that member chat network going, you start listening to the words, the indicators and stuff. Like, not only will you have, as Sass said, your BS, your BS detectors running at 139%, being in front of a TV is literally painful to me. You'll see this, and you'll see it when other people use it, and you will selectively not use it, right? You're not going to use the word tragedy, Sass. And the thing is, when you select not to use this, when you use authentic language, people notice. People will be like, whoa, like, he's speaking truth to power right there, Sass. They notice, trust me. And I hear it when I present on my PBS presentations, get showed or get aired over and over. And people will say, you spoke truth to power, right? Or whatever. And reading or School of Air, stuff like that. And I'm like, yeah, like, you can identify these things. And that's what I also tell people when I'm teaching, my administrative classes. I'm like, don't use this word. Like, pause, think about what you want to say, but don't use these catch-all basins. So being in front of a TV is literally painful to me. So yeah, Sass, I'll tell you, one of the things that if somebody had a blood pressure meter and a heart rate meter on me, when it is ABC News, and they come on every night, and it's like David Muir, and it's like, dun, 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 and then he's like, breaking news tonight. I'm like, you are such a fraud. This is the same turkey who was at the Notre Dame Cathedral like 2 days after the fire, and he takes his bare hand and he's wiping it across some wooden altar or whatever the hell, some surface, and he's like, yeah, the lead in here, and how are you going to mitigate, how are you going to handle this lead and all this stuff. I'm like, dude, like, this is crazy. You shouldn't even be in there, right? Like, with lead, this is just show promo, right? Like, everything is like, oh, breaking news, and maybe people should use a specific antacid to prevent, this pandemic effect. And it really, it wears on me. I just, boom, flip the channel, like, gone over to the Ghost channel, number 42. So Ghost, I can take the Ghost channel because I know I'm being entertained. But I can't take that. And I had a friend, or one of my roommates in college, Nate, who was that way back in college. He just absolutely despised the news. And I never really, like, figured out, I was like, why? Like, why do you hate this so much? until like, I got older and I started to see what was happening. And I'm like, yeah, this is all, lies and hyperbole. And it's just there's this thing called like negative vicarious rehearsal. It's meant to make people feel very afraid, even if they're like 1,000 miles or away from things, or it's very unlikely that this will impact them. That news clip is meant to drive it home. And again, if any of you watch that, like ABC News, right? The nightly news with Mir, just time out how much time is spent on anything. I mean, it's maybe 60 seconds, maybe 80 seconds, really outside of the commercials. So it can be this, whatever he claims is we have breaking news tonight and whatever. And, like even the departure out of Afghanistan was about 110 seconds. So, and that's it, right? But yeah, that is the thing. Like if Doc is ever to have a heart attack or anything, it'll probably happen when the nightly news is on, because I just get, in our local news comes out of Madison, Wisconsin, which is trying to emulate like the ABC, so they get into the same stuff. They don't carry the same credence, right? But they try to emulate that. And I'm like, oh, this is garbage. I do not like this. Get that garbage out of here. It ain't even that like warm. Yeah, I'm with you, Bacon. Like I can totally survive without the news, but I need to know what's in the news, because I need to look when I instruct my choruses and working with school administrators, right? I need to say to them, if this is what's in the news right now. For example, when the FBI, Merrick Garland the Attorney General sent this letter to the FBI October 4th about, how to make school board meetings safer and how to gather evidence on people who are disruptive at school board meetings. I'm like, you need to know about this. Like, because if this is on the news, like then parents are going to be thinking about this and your board members. And so you got to be aware of what's on the news, but not necessarily informed of what's on the news, because it's most likely not accurate, right? It's completely, I've been on National Public Radio a number of times. And when I come on NPR, like I have everything ready. I've got kind of even like 3 questions ahead of time. Like you can ask me these kind of like the softball questions. NPR always like goes in one direction and maybe ask 2 questions and you're done. You sit down and it's like, boom, this, and then they'll like go to break and for like, 60 seconds commercial, then they'll come back and then it's like, boom, and then you're done. So like none of the stuff that I want to cover really, I mean, they just lead it down this path and then they give you like a couple quick talking points and you have 100 seconds of airtime and then you're done. So yeah, that's why I like read the books, listen to podcasts, find out what's going on, get your member check network. Man Against the Masses. I'm in front of the TV right now watching Illinois putting the hurt on Notre Dame. Well, that's awesome. And Notre Dame, yes, bring in the pain. So I was watching the Packers like take out the Rams yesterday. It was pretty good. So I got the fantasy win in one of my leagues and I took a loss in another. So the second league, I'm going to have to battle for the final playoff spot, but I'm like in second place in my primary league. So, so yeah, like another run here at the playoffs here for the safety doc who won it all in 2014. Bacon wrote, Terrence Pop meme, Space Ghost is on. So yeah, I've been watching, I watch Pop whenever I see that Pop is on. And Pop and Blake. So yeah. And, talking truth to power and what's authentic, right? So Pop and Blake. So yeah, Pop with Space Ghost. So yeah, actually I would like to be on Pop's show to talk about kind of like this whole Merrick Garland, Attorney General, FBI memo stuff, because that never got resolved. Right. I've started to watch, and I do searches for these things of headlines for, like FBI appears at a school board meeting or, breaks into a parent's house or something. You never know kind of the whole story there, right? But there was supposed to be guidance from the FBI after November 4th on how schools could be, I guess, have safer school board meetings, and then also how they could collect evidence. And that never came out. So it's like, when will this come out? And what will it be? So I'm kind of watching that. One Too Many wrote, CNN did nonstop Iraq and Afghanistan war room until Obama was elected. Then they never mentioned again. So yeah, CNN, which came online in 1980, I wrote about in School of Airs. And one of the things of CNN also is CNN, when they started to, so CNN like admitted like back in the early 80s, like, we didn't have enough to cover, and people were getting tired of just watching like Congress in session. So they went and they would send a crew to cover some, third world village where there was a fight on two streets or something. And then they made it into this humanitarian aid thing. And so the Caspar Weinberger in 1984 had to put the Weinberger rules in effect of like, hey, we're not going to take our military and send them over for all these humanitarian things, which CNN is covering. Like CNN was trying to kind of work the American people up into, this frenzy of, hey, the U.S. should intervene in all of these things. So, that was pretty wild stuff. So, coming into, so we talked about I have bad news to share, right? And then we talked about how to deliver that. Also, be objective and be brief. Okay. When we're talking about this bus accident, remember we have students involved in a bus accident, staff. You got to be able to convey everything in 50 words. 50 words. So you write it down, and you're working off a script, right? You write it down, and you want to make sure that you are having somebody else like read that, and that you say it to yourself. Does it make sense? Right. But it can't be more than 50 words, right? It's gotta be 50 words. That's what you're presenting, 50 words. So and here's something that people do also. So let's say that you're talking about this bus crash, and then you also want to talk about reunification sites. Okay. Those are two separate things. So the bus crash is one press release, right? One time you're addressing the media, and then maybe 15 minutes later or whatever, you're coming forward and you're talking about the reunification sites. Like you want parents to be at the auditorium, and then they will be notified of where if their child or spouse or whatever was involved in this accident, where they were taken for medical care, and then they'll be identified. Here's your reunification site, go to this hospital or whatever. Those are two different things though, right? So you have this main thing of this bus accident happening, and then that's your press release. Boom, here's your other press release. And don't people try to field questions. We've seen this happen, right? People, how many was involved? Why? Where did this happen? What did this? And like, that will all be later. One of the great things about the communications in New York on 9/11, like with Giuliani, is it's really a case study of coming out and saying, here's what we know. And then like an hour later saying, here's what we know. Plus like, we told you this earlier, like, and here's like the subway system is shut down, or here's like, what is, and it was very concise in these regular updates. And that was just like a case study. But you don't want to get into this area where you're speculating. Can be real precise. And kind of my final thing here is this isn't about you, right? This isn't about you. And I've seen too many people, once the camera is put in front of them, they feel, that they have to deliver this lengthy performance. And I don't think necessarily it's intentional, but people feel they need to display empathy, and they need to start out with how this has affected them. So we have, what was it? The judge in the Waukesha massacre, the SUV person driving the SUV in the parade crowd, the judge talking at length about, such a strong, feelings, and I had to contemplate and all of this weighing on me about, this bond, and, ultimately this $5 million bond, which, is higher than I've ever issued. So I was like, dude, nobody wants to hear that. It's not about you. If it's a $5 million bond, then you say it's a $5 million bond, and that's done. Like, I don't need to know the interworkings of your process. And if we turned this over and at anybody in the audience who was impacted by this, or that we're not here to get this whole how difficult or what this deliberation or how this impacts you. And it, obviously, maybe, right, it does impact you authentically. You are here to be objective at that point. Like, you're not in the podium to indicate how this has impacted you. So that really kind of burns me when people go into that. And I think they do that because they don't have prior coaching, right? Nobody talks to them about how to manage crisis stuff. We go over this in the class that I teach, the one class, the superintendent class, because some of the superintendents have organizations, private organizations they work with, on how to message things like completed suicide, right, of a staff or student member, or somebody crashes a car on an icy road on the way to work, has their life taken from them in the crash, overdoses on drugs, whatever it could be. And, you know, these are the things where, you need to come up and identify, again, what is happening. And here's one thing, you wouldn't want to say in that bus crash, right? You wouldn't want to say, in my 20 years as a school administrator, I have experienced loss of students and faculty and loss. Remember, loss. We don't use the word loss when we're talking about death. And this situation is a reminder that life is precious and that our community is strong during these trying times. And no, like that's a statement you would use at a vigil, a support event, or a rally a day later or two, right? Like, but you're not using it right then in the initial stages of communicating what's going out. You're communicating out, the factual information, transparent of what you know, and not including your personal, I guess, impact or feelings in this, right? Like that's so let's go over to the questions here. Andrew wrote to assess one too many. Yep, every night would start with a death count. So, yeah, that with Iraq and Afghanistan. So, Bacon wrote, I would love to see you on Terrence Pop. I'll super chat him tomorrow. Hey, you should. Yeah, super chat him. I think Pop and Blake would have me on. And also because of the connection, of knowing Aaron and stuff like that. But this would be to have me on about this whole FBI surveillance or the memo thing of like gathering evidence and stuff, because that's out there. Like that's public knowledge. Like that, I have that linked in one of my podcasts. And, so what does this really mean? It just is kind of hanging out there, right? So what did the FBI say or by not saying, what is probably happening? And, I posed the question to my aspiring superintendents of saying, what if the memo comes out and it says people were recommending boards to videotape the audiences at board meetings? And, what do you do then? Like, do you go along with that? Or what if the media, you come on and it's the nightly news, the national news, and they're like, FBI advises school boards to record, their board of education to record audience members, and this will be evidence. And how do you get ahead of that? So you got to be thinking, right? You got to be down the road. So let's go. And so where am I here? By goodness here. So yeah, let's see where I kind of like. So a couple things. One is, if you have bad news to share at a professional level or at a personal level, start out, and this is again the Chris Voss method. Chris Voss is that FBI negotiator. You can find a lot of his snippets on YouTube, 10-minute stuff, or even like full presentation. It's pretty fascinating. And then he had a book, what is it? Don't Split the Difference. But anyway, when you have bad news to share, start out, you have people together and they're attending to you and you say, I have bad news to share. That's how you start things out. I have bad news to share. Then you pause. So again, I call it I don't know if any of you remember, you can put it in the chat here. Any of you remember the Dennis Eckersley Oakland A's wind up in baseball? He's a reliever. And Eckersley would have this tremendous windup. The guy would be, almost his hands, down on the mound and then all around and whirling and stuff before he'd throw the ball. It was just this real incredible production, right? And you don't want that. Like, you're not there to set that statement up in any way. You are there to immediately deliver that statement. I have bad news to share. So, family, hey, I have bad news to share. Like, you entrusted me to invest all your money. I did, and it's all gone because whatever crashed. So, I have bad news to share. I have bad news to share. And then, we talked about this bus accident. So let's say I have bad news to share. Second thing is what would appear if it was like in a study of this or whatever it would be. Students and staff were involved in a bus accident on their way to a field trip. So it's your second thing. The third sentence, it has to be an I statement because you are the one that has the information you're conveying. It's not like I heard this from or they said or whatever. This has to be you to the person. I have been in contact with the State Patrol and was informed that some occupants of the bus have been transported to hospitals. Okay. And if you know like the number for sure, like you could say that like 17 occupants or whatever, but early on, you're probably going to just know like this. I have no information about the types of injuries or fatalities. Boom. And then of course, your statement after that is what you want people to do. Okay. You can stay in this room, or I want you to, go over to the high school in the auditorium, and we are going to keep information coming in of who was involved in this and where they've been transported, right? And then we'll get that out to you. We'll take your information and things like that. And then boom, you're done. That literally is, a 2-minute or less. And you're not taking questions because you don't know anymore at that point. You would just be speculating. You don't need to drag that out. Lost their lives. Just don't say this. When people say lost their life, I mean, it's misplaced. And if you've ever if you've experienced, right, somebody who has, it's like, was killed in a bus accident, right? That if someone says, "Oh, I'm sorry, they lost their life." Well, yeah, I mean, that has a different feeling than saying they had their life taken from them in a bus accident. It was the accident. It was the incident which took their life, right? Again, this whole thing of lost their life seems to, and parents will tell me this again. Parents who have had children killed say this. It is like a dagger when people say that they've lost their lives. They've lost their lives. Again, it's not keys. It's not socks. You're not going to find these things. It wasn't some careless mishap. Do not say that. And I can tell you, if you're interfacing with somebody, right, who it has experienced, death, somebody in an accident, or even if it's that, or aggressive cancer, or whatever it is, do not use lost their life. Say they had their life taken from them from the cancer or from the disease or from the accident or something. It conveys a completely different tone to people, right? And if you were the recipient of that information, like, you would want that. So let me go over to the chat's been lighting up here quite a bit, which is great. So this is from Andrew. Andrew wrote, "The worst is when the speaker tries to make a joke during the bad news speech." That's horrific, and I've seen that, right? And so, that is, again, that's people who haven't been coached. You need to, before you get to that podium where you're delivering bad news, you need to run that by yourself as a member check and by somebody else. And you need to say, just like, when I had reviewers go through Velocity of Information, I said, this book can't read like a conspiracy theory. It has to be middle of the road for politics. And, there were certain things. And what you have to say here is like, this has to be respectful. If I'm not landing this because, people are, kind of frantic. They haven't practiced for this ever. They haven't anticipated this. And they go up and they can, say things which are just absolutely, do not match the tone of the event. So it is making sure that, you have somebody, or if you don't have somebody, and then also yourself, and less is always better, right? But yeah, someone who tries to make a joke during the bad news speech. I saw that. I think it was, I don't want to name which school event because I'm not exactly sure, but it was a mayor who came up and said something that was trying to be more hearted to it. It was totally crazy to watch it and to listen to it. And that was also the Our Lady of Angels school fire, Andrew, in on December 1st, 1958. 92 students and 3 nuns perished in a school fire in Chicago at Our Lady of Angels. And when the priest was doing the yeah, the mass, and all of these, there's a gymnasium, all of these caskets and things. I mean, he was going off and saying, well, it's a great day in heaven with all these kids there and these wonderful people, and it's like, what in the hell are you saying? So you can, I think that's on video, and then it's also well documented. But it's like, holy smokes, like, oh my god, like that is completely mismatched. And you're somebody, you would say this, and someone say, I know what you're trying to do, but do not frame it this way. Do not do this. um Bacon wrote, bad news, no one ever wants. The test results came back positive. Yeah, right. um Hey, as our friend from Swamp Dog Armory. So thank you, Swamp Dog Armory. Appreciate it. And by the way, I want to check. I got a message here, and I think it was from Dark. So Dark says, "Hey, Swamp Fox Optics is doing a giveaway, and I really want to win. Could you be? Oh, he's like, hey, or could you enter also? So he's giving me an opportunity here that I can enter for some optics. So yeah, I don't know. I will check it out. So awesome. Um, so Bacon, I feel called out. No, buddy, you're not called out. They lost it. Narrative, right? Yeah, they. Um, so, I mean, this will be a good thing next week when SAST is on, and you see these words, and as soon as they come up, they like they click in your mind. You're like, whoa, they versus I observed, and they is a broadening, and tragedy is a word which is really cowardly to use, and you start to see this framing out and say, they don't know. This is a sham, right? This is not accurate reporting, or there is some intent here to disperse the responsibility. um So, hey, yeah, it is. Hey, Walter, man, I just made it. So, all right, Walter, we're at 741 subs, up 240, I think, in November. So it's pretty awesome. Like celebrating here. Um, so the Swamp Fox giveaway ends at 8 p.m. Mountain Time, though, at the safety dock. So, okay, Swamp Fox giveaway. All right, so Bacon was able to get the link out here. So right there, Swamp Fox Optics. Awesome. Thank you for getting that out there. And good. So another thing, crash versus attack, right? We all saw it. We all saw the headline, Parade Crash. And I would say if you see this in whatever media, national, local, whatever, I got on and I found where they were on social media or their email addresses, and I would copy what they put, and I'd say, this is garbage. You need to be better than this, and this erodes your credibility. Instead of using this word crash, the appropriate term was attack, right? And instead of saying tragedy, it's massacre. And I don't know if people read that or their feedback. No one ever got back to me, but you have to step in and hold people accountable. And the other thing is, like, the language has changed. Like the pivot on Waukesha in the last 48 hours, the word killed has come in, and that wasn't there before. I haven't heard the word massacre yet. I've still heard the word tragedy, but so, and again, if we go back to the headline on September 12th, 2001, the New York Times, U.S. hijacked, right? Jets destroy Twin Towers and hit Pentagon and Day of Terror. At that time yet wasn't identified who was responsible for the hijacked jets. But that headline today would probably be Planes crash into Twin Towers of Pentagon. Unknown numbers lose their lives. So be objective, be brief. Be brief. And let's go over to the chat here. Come on, 800. Yeah. So Walter, I'm looking also for I need more hours for views. I think I'm at like 1,500 hours. I need to get 4,000 hours for monetization. So monetization of this channel, I think also lends itself to credibility. It's kind of like a blue check in Twitter, right? There's some back, I think when a lot of people got blue checks, it was an easier process at one point, but I want to have this channel where it can be monetized by the time the book comes out, because I think it will propel like the book, which is really important for people to understand the velocity of information, how to build resiliency during chaotic times, things that they can do to prevent burnout. When I say burnout, that's, actually is a technical term used in World War II. Of you had burnout of being psychologically collapsed. Like, you typically didn't recover from that. Like, these are people that would come back home and they would never really reintegrate back into society. So you want to be able to know how to put these fuses in before. And I lay it out really well. So we're going to, get all of that. So Walter wrote, because I didn't get called out enough already. So I'm not calling you out, buddy. And by the way, I hope your engine is good. I do sincerely hope that. You need to use more 0.8 oil. So too bad I didn't get to 300 yet. Mrs. Swamp Dog is off this Thursday when I'm doing the podcast, but she's got to get to 300 before she'll come on. Well, you have a good channel, Swamp Dog, and you just started, man. I've been doing this. This is like show 160 over like 4 years. So, and I'm just now at 741. So you are at a trajectory which will get you to 1,000 much faster than kind of my topic here. But I appreciate, yeah, you'll get there. You have a good show. Yeah, 1K is a big thing. So one, I noticed, I was reading stuff about Google, or YouTube analytics, and one of the markers was once you cross 700, you typically pick up speed, and then you pick up more speed after 1,000. But 700 was a point. So now, like, I'm over 700, 741, and this channel was about 500, a month ago, right? So it is starting every morning. I'm looking, there's like 5 more subscribers or 7 more subscribers or whatever it is. So I appreciate that. And from a marketing standpoint for my work in the velocity of information coming out in April, my publisher, I mean, they're very much in tune to the social media presence, and when you get to 1,000 subs, right, and you can monetize and things like that, that it is, this badge of this verification, this informal verification badge, right? Like, that is meaningful. So that's why I've been, committing to a regular podcast schedule and adding in that Friday face validity, which I've enjoyed. So yeah, it's been good. Swamp Dogs wrote, I think you'd be a perfect regular panel co-host on Swamp Dog Talk, the safety doc. Your points are great. So, well, yeah, hit me up with that. So thanks. I have a good way of explaining things. I know I talk quite a bit on this show. When I was on PBS, like, there's a 1-hour live show, right? So a Swamp Dog, when you are doing it live, there are different color schemes that come up as you're looking out. Nobody sees this, right? And there's monitors in front of you, so they're communicating to you within the show of like, like, stand, move over here, do this, or we're gonna like cut in a break or something. So like like you have no practice of this. Like, I'm not a TV guy, right? So, but like so one of the things like there is I had to be very precise. Like, everything had to be almost word for word. So I hit the exact timing, which I did. But you start to see and work in that environment. So everything has to just click. But yeah, no, that sounds great. I would make a great co-host. I think I really would. Bacon wrote to SAST. I was in my first day of high school when my mom came to get me, and I was wondering just how I got in trouble. So I'm thinking when 9/11 happened is what you're saying, as you were in high school. So I was teaching when 9/11 happened, and a 4th grade student by the name of Harley he came in and he said, "Hey, Mr. P, have you heard about the Twin Towers?" That I'm like, "I have no idea." So he's like, "Go on the internet." And so I went on, and then it was like Yahoo News, right? And then everything just kind of started to stand still. Like teachers started to congregate in rooms to watch what was going on, and all. I remember like when I came home that night, the cars were lined up for blocks outside of the gas station because the thought was, there wouldn't be gas deliveries, right? Like OPEC might shut stuff down, or there could be like these additional terrorist attacks. So it was just absolute wild. So Swamp Dog wrote, I've heard that too. There's are a few points in the growth here. Things tend to exponentially grow for a while. Yeah. Another point, and please, if you guys haven't done this, go down and put something in the comments. I respond to all comments, and a number of the shows lately have been getting 5-10 comments. So that is propelling it forward. I always do a thorough description, and I also add tags in this. So when I think the algorithm starts to see all of you post it in there, people have said, "Hey, your show has popped up like as a recommendation," stuff like that. So please do that. You could say like, here's a time I saw somebody like present bad news in what I thought was a really effective way, or here's one time somebody presented it in a horrible way. And things like that from your own experience, whether it be professional, public, or personal, whatever you'd want to share of somebody sharing. And again, I mean, these are things nobody is really coached on or taught. Even professionally is one thing, but even a personal level of when you have bad news to share, like be very I have bad news to share. Here's the bad news. Here's what you're supposed to do about it, or here's like what I'm doing about it. And then again, that whole 50-word thing. So let's go over here. Hey, Robert. So every time I see Robert, I love your logo. Every time I see Robert, I'm just thinking zero weight oil. Just Robert with his experience in engines and oil. I appreciate it. But yeah, my new vehicle will run zero weight. First vehicle I've ever had. So, and those are back in the days, like I used to run like as thick of oil as I could in my cars back like, 25 years ago, just so it wouldn't leak out. I mean, as just pour, take like forever just to pour the oil out, like 40 weight stuff. But, so I think my LeBaron was running some like super thick oil there for a while. So, but yeah, Swamp Dog, you might talk a lot, but it keeps things engaging. You break things down for folks able. Thanks, buddy. I was already going to mention bollards. It just didn't know how to spell it. So Swamp Dog, and it's funny because apparently I didn't pronounce bollards correctly until 2 years ago or 3 years ago. Someone said, "Hey, it's not bollards. I used to say bollards," and they're like, "It's bollards. Like, just say it correctly." Like, I'm like, "Oh," it was like a friend of mine. They're like, "Hey, I just want to tell you, like, when you say bollards, like that's not it's not the pronunciation." I'm like, "I don't know. I thought it was." People have said it, so it's bollards. Okay, bollards. So yeah, they're like, "Where's this guy from?" Where they call it bollards, but those things are so. Yeah, chapter 28 of my book here, School of Errors. And if you haven't ordered this thing, boy, if you're a parent, please consider this seriously of understanding what is happening with school safety. Or if you have a friend who's a parent, right, and you're like, "Hey, I'm trying to get the perfect Christmas gift for them," and it's $30. It's always been $30. I don't set the price; the publisher does. Hard copy though. This book has been with me everywhere I've presented, and it's not bent in on any of the corners. They really make these things well, right? So, but it's a terrific book. And it speaks to you. I wrote it to the reader. It's not this heavy thing of research or other stuff. You're going to get through it in a couple nights and you'll be like, whoa. And then when, you're starting to see things, or, hey, like my school is doing this type of drill, you're like, well, I'm not sure. Or I have questions like, principal, what is your objective? Are you trying to learn about your two-way radio systems? Or when you put these bollards in here with my tax dollars, what else could we have spent that money on. And you get to understand kind of just brutally how unregulated the school safety arena is, like completely unregulated. And I also talked about that on PBS. Just shocking. So honestly, the book is in this area by itself as this truth agent, and it and I I mean I'm always amazed, when I read through it because I pulled in so much kind of different information when I put this together. Like how the 9/11 rescue of 500,000 people and how that works, kind of like with school safety drills, right? You can only like practice so far into a situation. Like no one anticipated 9/11 and the harbor rescue. So in the moment, you got to make decisions, discretion. So I talk about discretion a lot in the book, like who has discretion. And I was talking about that today on John Crump Live, and I said, if you asked teachers in schools individually, one to one, not where like they can kind of see who's raising their hand and who's not. If you ask them, say, what, there's smoke coming out from a classroom down the hall, like under the door and stuff, and what would you do? And you give some options, like 4 options, like nothing, pull a fire alarm, find an administrator, or like investigate that classroom, or try to put it out with a fire extinguisher, whatever it is. 83% of the time, and this is over a very large group of people. It's continuous. We still do this. A friend of mine who's a safety expert, Morgan Ballas, to this day, we still do this. We say, how many, like, what would you do? And 83% of people say, I'd find an administrator because and then you ask, like, well, why? Well, if I don't think I have discretion to do this, like I haven't been given discretion to pull the alarm. That's a big thing, right? At the school or facility or whatever, like to pull a fire alarm, I'd have to get permission to do that. So, well, that's weird. Like, so when you start to dig into it in these school systems, you'll find like people really don't believe they have discretion to act in the best interest of others, but the law clearly affords them that discretion. Like there's like 60 law cases, and I just kind of summarize it down into like a paragraph or two saying you should act in the best discretion, but people are just terrified. They're always trying to find somebody to tell them what to do, even though they know what needs to be done, right? You clearly know in that situation, you need to pull a fire alarm, get people out of the building. You can check what's going on, but very unusual, right? To see smoke coming out from under a door. But people say, I don't feel I have discretion to make these decisions. And so you see that, like who around you has discretion, or like in your personal life, like what do you have discretion, or like your spouse or your kids, or like who has discretion, to do this. It's mind boggling. But I think that's a big problem now. I think people are very afraid to take control of a situation, to say, I'm going to take the lead in this. And it's you're acting in best interest is always limited to context and situation. So, so Andrew wrote, have you emailed Joe Rogan? You could get 10,000 subs. So I'm sure I could. I haven't emailed him. I'm not sure Joe Rogan. I'm not sure how I would get a hold of Joe Rogan. I appreciate that. I was able to make a connection with Mike Rowe from Micro Works, or the Mike Rowe show. And I thought with Mike, like that he would be perfect to do a forward for my book, The Velocity of Information, because it was talking about how you have to authenticate information, and you don't have to have all of this expertise to do that. You can go out and kind of be the citizen as journalist and be very effective at it. So, but that seemed like it had like some hope for a while, but then Mike indicated that he was doing the show. I think it was over in Minnesota, like it's the state over stuff, and it just didn't work out timing wise. I think Joe Rogan, if Joe Rogan ever invited me, I would certainly be on the show. I think it'd be fascinating to talk about my experiences, right, with investigating all of the crazy stuff of what is school safety, and who can, say like, this is effective. Like, hey, this door lock that I made at home, and you should put it on, and it has like three things that you have to do before you can get out, like, and schools buy it. And then also, like, I'm sure Rogan would kind of be into this because he's got kids too, like this whole FBI thing, right? Of investigating and gathering evidence and what does that really mean? And none of us really know, but we know like these statements have been made, these public releases. So, any of you guys want to do that? You email Joe Rogan, say, hey, there's this guy out there, safety PhD, safety doc. He's been on PBS a couple times. And Joe, I think you'd love to have him on your show. By golly. Any of you did that, I'd be sending you a free book inscribed. So yeah. Swamp Dog, or Bacon wrote to Swamp Dog. Yeah, Doc can vamp like a boss, and it isn't just filler. So hey, thanks, buddy. Hey, it is Mrs. Swamp Dog. All right, just subscribed. Well, thank you very much, Mrs. Swamp Dog. So that is very cool of you. I think the descriptions and thumbnails is an area I may be lacking in Swamp Dog Armory. So I'm not your expert with that. Mike Honcho, right, got a hold of me and was saying, like, with my thumbnails and stuff, there are kind of like two schools of thought. One is like to have an image that conveys it, and another one is to have a standard template with easy to read text, which is what I've been trying to do. So that blue background with my image, and and the face validity one is changed up a little bit, but I'm trying to do standardized to make it very recognizable. So I think it's good. Like I think I've improved my thumbnails. They used to have like way too much narrative and stuff like that, and so I don't know. I if anybody has advice for me on that, we were at a Thanksgiving family gathering, right? And one of my relatives was saying, hey, you should have, okay, remember that you should have a Facebook page for your books and other stuff. Yeah, I suppose, but I don't. And because I don't have Facebook, and you should have Instagram, and you should be making TikTok videos and all this stuff. And I'm like, yeah, maybe, like, and you should hire a social influencer. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. I mean, I very much appreciate people who give me like very specific things. Like here's some tips on a thumbnail at work, or here's like some other things. But yeah, I'm not really planning on firing up this whole production of this big outlay of my money into this team to build up my stuff. It's got to kind of be organic. And as Dark and I were talking about this, and he said, the thing is, like, you've done it the organic method, right? Like you're not going out and buying subscribers and all this other stuff, which is true, right? And he said, so when you get there, I mean, these are people who sincerely are vested in your work. They know you, they follow your shows, they interact with you. And so that's very meaningful versus, right, if you say, oh, like I've got 5,000 subscribers, but like, you've gone onto some site and you've just bought 4,000 subscribers. So that is true. Like I can always say to my publisher, like, the people that follow me, there's no incentive other than the content that I produce. I'm not doing these big cash raffles or anything like that. So I think it was my publisher, somebody analyzed my followers and they said, you know what, like 25 or 30% of your followers identify as like preppers or survivalists. And I said, that's awesome. Like I love that community because, and Second Amendment, I said, those are really keen folks. And I actually had, so Morgan Rogue, who's from Rogue Preparedness, is in my new book, a chapter devoted to her and identifying velocity of information shortages from a prepper perspective, things that she was seeing that other people weren't, like the shortage early on of freezers and sewing machines and stuff like that. So Morgan is in there, and Morgan also has a back cover endorsement for the book, which if you were kind of like, oh, the safety doc, like he researches like chaos and some other things, you'd be like, oh, like this seems like this wouldn't be matched up until you like really read my work, right? School of Air's Katie Pashon with Cajun Navy Relief and her experiences, Morgan Rogue and stuff. So, I told my publisher, I said, I love these folks. Like they're really astute. They're so in tune with things, situational awareness. So I love that audience. They're like, yeah, like So I said, I want a back cover, from Morgan Rogue. Like, let's put a back cover endorsement. They're like, yeah, all for it. So it's just kind of, some people have kind of looked at it and they're like, well, this seems like, this doesn't seem like an audience that matches. And I said, well, you don't know me and you don't know my audience. These guys are great, like Swamp and Bacon and Sast and so so those are great people, smart people, voices. Swamp Dog, yes, Mrs. Swamp Dog to Bacon. So laugh a lot. I was mispronouncing the holographic 3D tablet for a long time until just a few months ago when I was trying to tell folks about it. It's funny, you mentioned Swamp Dog. So in the book, The Velocity of Information, so Nikolai Razavayu, who is the Soviet cyclist who cycled outside of Chernobyl a day after the nuclear disaster in 1986. Like, I had no idea how to pronounce his last name, and finally I got it down, Razavayu. But he talks about different Soviet authors who are producing Samizdat, or this underground newspaper stuff at the time, like 86, 87, 88. And I'm like, I don't know how to pronounce any of these names, dude. I have no idea. So then, like, my narrator for the book is coming to me saying, how do you pronounce this? I'm like, I don't know. So I'm kind of like trying to get it from Nikolai, or I'm like, some of this stuff is just kind of like, it's a punt. I don't know how, I really don't know how to pronounce this. It's kind of a funny thing. So I'm, also a speech language pathologist, right? So phonetically I can spell things out, but even when I had Lisa Lenny on my show about a month ago, and she is the attorney out of Texas, and we were talking about parents suing schools over COVID. If their kids catch COVID, there was lawsuits coming out. What does that look like from a parent side and school side? And I'm like, so how do we pronounce your last name? Lene? I'm like, it's 2 syllables. Linny, like your knee. So once you get the Lin down, Linny. I'm still like, Lisa Linny. So I'm just like, oh my God. Yeah, I'm just not good at that. So yeah, you're a big guy, or hey, like all-star, like rock star, like I got it. So home run, but yeah. So that's funny. So I've been there, man. I've been there. It's so funny too, because like I tied that show on entropy like a week or two ago. And I mean, it is a pretty straightforward concept. We think about entropy, or the deterioration of systems into a state of chaos. Like every vehicle will eventually rust and rot and stuff like that. I didn't know what entropy meant 3 years ago. I didn't, like, someone could say to me, like, what is your take on entropy of the roads? I'd be like, what? What do you mean? I don't know. I mean, so, like, there's so many, when I worked with Dr. Paul Rapp to help with the school of errors. So Dr. Rapp is at a military medicine, and Paul would say, like, this is what you're explaining here is like simulated annealing process. I'm like, what? I'm like, and then he talked about, I'm like, okay, Paul, I need a different example. I need like an example I don't understand what. So he's like, oh, so it's like your flight is canceled. So I remember him telling me this story. He's like, your flight is canceled, and then you can either reschedule, but you have to stop in 2 places, and then you have to take a bus. So the bus gets you closer. But when you're done with the bus ride, you could either get an Uber, or you could get a cab, or you could stay there overnight. And maybe the next night you could fly. These are all options. So like simulated annealing is something changes, and then you have to inventory your options, make a decision, and then you get closer to your outcome, and then you make another decision based upon your option, and then you just incrementally kind of get there. So I'm like, oh, okay, like I can understand that. So when I put this together in my book and you're reading this stuff, a lot of this is things where I've had to go back to people and say, like, help me understand this. We got into, so I have a chapter later in the book, and it's about, it's chaos. And so I define chaos, crisis, black swan, and force majeure. So, but when I was getting into crisis, there's actually a mathematical formula for crisis, which I didn't know about. And when I got it, I was like, I don't know what the hell this means. Like, I don't understand this. But one of the things, so I'm talking to a couple scientists who work in, chaos theory and stuff. I'm like, tell me what this means. Like, what is this, you're talking about chaos events lasting short, long term, which I'm kind of writing about, like, but what does this mean? And I remember one said, well, think about it this way. Like, you have Halley's Comet, which I didn't write this example in the book. I probably should have, but it's in there in other ways. Halley's Comet, comes around and it doesn't cause chaos, but if it comes around the Earth, like you see it for a certain amount of time, it's there and you're aware of it. Like, so that's chaos. So it's close by, but then it doesn't ever go away. It doesn't vanish. It just moves out of your orbit. You just don't recognize it anymore. It's still there. And at any point in time, it could collide with something out in space and it could be rocketed back toward Earth and like it could just throw you for a loop. That's kind of, this long phase of chaos, like chaos that lasts months or years, kind of like what we're in right now. It's extended pandemic chaos. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. You just kind of get used to it being out of the way and you don't have to deal with it for a long time. And then you just kind of get back into a routine, even though chaos is still there, it just hasn't vanished. But yeah, I had no idea. Like, I'm like, and there's another term in there. It's called a bifurcation point in chaos. So as I say this, like I say it like I'm real smart, right? But I'm like, I don't know, what does this mean? And when somebody explained it and said, well, think of an ice cube, right? Like, so there's this thing called soft bifurcation or hard bifurcation. So as an ice cube, temperature heats up an ice cube, and you got scotch on the rocks. It cools down the scotch. Nice to drink. That's a soft bifurcation. Like over time, it just eases its way into cools everything down. Hard bifurcation be like you're out ice fishing there in Wisconsin, and the temperatures get heat up rapidly that day, and the ice thins out, and you fall through the ice, and you're soaked. Right? You're okay, but you're soaked. That's a hard bifurcation. So I'm like, okay, so there's different ways of chaos kind of set in. It's written much more thoughtfully in the book. I went through it, but actually, then I sent the chapters back out to like these scientists. I'm like, what I wrote here, is this kind of on? And they'd be like, yeah, or like, here, adjust it. So, but I'd be like, I remember when I started my PhD program, and the profs would talk about qualitative and quantitative measures. I didn't know the difference between the two, so I had to take a note and put it on the corner of my laptop on like a sticky note. Qualitative was interviews, quantitative was numbers. And that sticky note was there for probably like a semester until I just got that down. Okay, quant is numbers, qualitative is interviews. I didn't know, like no one ever talked to us. So they talk about this, you're supposed to know all this stuff. And so I'm just like, yeah, just a second there, checking the keyboard. Yeah, qualitative, it's interviews. So I had a prof in college my second semester, and it was a course on language, right? Just of learning kind of more sophisticated terminology. I forget what the hell the name of the class was, but it was a terrific prof. And I'll never forget one of the terms he taught. I don't know why he taught it, but he talked about a zarf, ZARF, and it was like a chalice type thing that you held a beverage in. But yeah, to this day, I still remember that zarf. But we need more classes like that. Bull Rush. Hey, from Texas. Oh no, not the Bollards. Bull Rush. Bull Rush, by the way, he is a big fan of 22-inch monitors. I think he collects them. So it's kind of his thing. Like any brand, whatever, 22-inch monitor, you've got it. All right. So if you're in the greater Texas area, get a hold of him. And if you want to donate used or new, not a Bollards, but monitors, 22-inch monitors. So in all seriousness, check out Bull Rush at Lazarus Razors on Etsy. Lazarus Razors. Amazing work that he does with straight razors to you just see the razors like in the store and you think that's the way that they always have been. And then you see the stuff that was out there in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, these straight razors. And then he reconditions these as a incredible work of art. But yeah, I mean, it is absolutely amazing. And he helped me with a kind of a safety razor, like which has been remarkable. Like you don't realize like how great these things were until you're like, oh, I'm just buying these, 99-cent sack of razors here, which are chopping my face up every day. Swamp Dog Armory. I should talk to you about my high school I went to. There was a lot going on, nearly the size of a college campus. Holy smokes. So yeah, my high school was small. I had like 50 kids in my graduating class. So and it was very, like, I think, like everybody I started freshmen, like we were all there, like at seniors, like no one really moved in and out. Bacon wrote to Swamp Dog, "What are these descriptions you speak of?" Asking for a friend. Walter wrote, "Bollards, is that the same as a big yellow post?" It is. Yeah, it's the same thing. And those things, so they put them in my community. And what happens? A couple of years, they fade, and then they look really bad. And then they rust at the bottom because it's Wisconsin and people salt sidewalks. Schools, definitely salt sidewalks to make sure that they don't have liability for people slipping and stuff. So then the metal bollards rust out at the bottom. They just look bad. And so, and everybody kind of subtly realizes what a mistake those were, although they'll never say it. So this is a bad thing. So Walter wrote, "Raiders of the Lost Zarf." Sounds like a great sequel. It could be. Zarf. I remember, yeah, You've Chosen Wisely. See, that was a great movie. God, I mean, growing up in the 80s, the Back to the Future, Police Academy, the Raiders of the Lost Ark, Star Wars stuff. I know it started in the 70s, but the Star Trek Wrath of Khan in 82. I mean, oh my God, like, what a great thing to grow up in the 80s and to have those movies. Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters in 84. So there it is on LazarusRazors.com. And I seriously, check that out. And I mean, just the skill that Bull Rush has in reconditioning these straight razors. And you don't have an appreciation for the effect of a great razor until you use one, which I have, and from Bull Rush. And I'm like, holy smokes, like this is unbelievable. So yeah. Song Armory wrote, "I think there should be a class on gentlemen's home EC, including cocktail mixing, grilling, firearm safety, and tailoring, and how to dress." I like that. That's cool. And I think you're right on. When I was slogging it to the office, every day, I would be very thoughtful, like on matching a tie with a sport coat, with what shoes, with what pants, and just kind of just the presentation on how to dress. Even like now in summer, like I'll match, if it's just summer, like a sleeveless, whatever shirt with, I'll match the running shoes and all of that. Not like this big fashion thing, but I think there is this attention to how to present yourself, right? And even like, so I usually wear visors instead of like baseball caps, and like I want the visor to be like a certain way, and my hair to be like up over the top of the visor and things. I just think there's a certain way to kind of present yourself. So that's good. Yeah, how cocktail mixing, absolutely. Grilling, yeah. I like to firearm safety. Yeah, that's a great lineup right there. So cocktail mixing. So I'm a Long Island iced tea guy. Swamp Dog to Walter. I don't know the name of it, or if it's a guy or girl. I remember it being a girl, but I don't remember the name. Hey, Vanessa Kitty, welcome. Stationed in Alaska in the 80s. Holy smokes. I wonder what that was like. Morgan Rogue from Rogue Preparedness, who I interviewed for Velocity of Information. She and her family, they moved there. They live in Alaska right now. Did that in the last like 6 months. So, man, I would love to hear what that experience was like. Yeah, I was often recruited to like work in Alaska when it's speech language, like that was pretty nonstop. Like shortages, like what would it take to, as a young man, like that would have been maybe like an experience. Not now, but holy smokes. Swamp Dog wrote, "The trivia question will be relating to the concrete in the locker somehow." So, whoa, trivia question relating to concrete in the locker. It's good. World's most interesting man. So you guys, Swamp Dog and opening doors, absolutely great idea as long as everyone identifies as one or two genders. I still open doors for people. So, and all people, like and I've never had that backfire. And if I'm I'm not super tall, but like if I'm at a store and somebody's trying to reach up, or it's like a elderly person trying to get something heavy, like I will always offer, I would be glad to put that in your cart. And usually people are like, yeah, that's great. Gentleman's home economics. So lawn care. Yeah. I think I'm very, not overly, but I have a very specific, I think like there's a certain edging you should always do, right? You don't keep the way you should present your lawn, some cross-cut things, like just to do it, make it be representative, like represent the neighborhood. A gentleman is not required by gender. It's a matter of character. Okay. Not a matter of gender. Okay. Vanessa, the 5 years I spent in Alaska were the most memorable of my career. That's awesome. I imagine, like, I just think that would be great. I mean, to match it at a certain time in life, like to have that life experience. SAS one too many. Alaska is losing population like crazy. Top 5 states. Like right now, unless you're kind of Morgan Rogue, right? Like, what would really bring you to Alaska? Because right, the oil industry and the mining and gold and all of I remember Gold Rush Alaska. There used to be a cable TV show, but like that's all kind of dwindling. So yeah, I mean, what would bring you up there? So I don't know, man. I wish I would have at least gone to Alaska when I was younger. So Andrew wrote, yeah, it's a good time to buy a home in Alaska. Don't you get a payment too, like from the government for every year you're up there, you get some credit, something. So I know Morgan said that they have a community well. She said this on a podcast. They have a community well where they get their water, and then it's a couple hours to like a Walmart, but typically like you can get the supplies. It costs more, but even if you're very rural, you were able to still get things. So Vanessa wrote, always help in the store, being 6'3", it is a duty. So are you 6'3"? Holy smokes. Wow. Yeah. So I often find myself like when I'm loading up a cat litter, we have 3 cats. There are people there, and eyeing up like something, a 40-pound bag of cat litter. Can I help you with that? Be glad to do that. So, by the way, like the survey company did officially stake the final corner of my property. They didn't do it in summer after they surveyed. Like they found the stakes that were there, like which were 2-inch pipes, 2-inch across pipes, iron pipes put down back when the house was built. And but in the front on the one side there was nothing. So then they said, "Oh, we'll mark this for you," and then they never did. So I had to send them a letter, and I see that it was marked and flagged, which creates an interesting situation because my neighbor's fence is technically on my property, and my neighbor's nervous about it. I'm like, chill, nothing, no problem here. But yeah, he's like, hey, like, do you want me to take? I mean, if nothing has to happen with the fence, it's not why I mark this. Like, I've got some concrete replacement. I just needed to know where some boundaries were and stuff like that. So this guy's totally nervous. So I'm like, no, Doc is a good neighbor. I'm helpful. I'm a good person here as a neighbor. Walter wrote, agreed. I was having a poke at knuckleheads that would object to teaching something for dudes only. I think I said this once, and it was just kind of in jest, but I said, imagine a community where in high school, like all the 18-year-old guys, or even 18-year-old students, I guess, the townsfolk come in, and they're all, and so the maybe students are down below, and townsfolk get up in the bleachers, and they're like, well, here's what it's like, once you get out, like, you got to have responsibility for a job and payments or taking control, and not that it's necessarily a bad thing, but I just think there's so much that people don't understand. They get in the dark. But I had one of my college roommates, he signed up for every credit card on offer on campus, right? They give away like a T-shirt or some like lousy, junky basketball or something like that. So the guy ended up having like 30 credit cards, and then ended up like getting in debt with these credit cards and overwhelmed, and eventually in all this trouble, like trying back then the fees to cancel them out and stuff like that. I'm like, dude, like this is all a scam. You just got a 30-cent T-shirt or a can koozie or cozy or whatever the hell they call those things, for this credit card. So he was always trying to be like, hey, you should get this. Like, no, absolutely not. Swamp Dog 2, the safety doc. The concrete trivia is related to the story a little earlier in the comments. All right. So, all right, buddy. Sorry if that's where if I had a co-host here, I'd be co-host would be able to bring that up, like Blake to bring it up to Papa. Okay. I worked at a concrete factory when I was like 14 years old. Lawn be a part of the course, lawn care, right? Liming is really important to lawns. It's funny because now I'm one of the older people in my neighborhood, right? So some of I always have a nice lawn. People do say that because I'll be out in a lawn chair like in summer toward the 5-6 o'clock. People walk by and hey, like the lawn looks good. I know it looks good, cross-cut it, stuff like that. But it's all about like where I live. It's liming because we have sandy soil. So you got to lime, buddy. You gotta lime it up. It's gonna help you out. So Vanessa wrote, there are just over 100,000 in Alaska when I was up there. Most population was in Alaska. Holy smokes. I couldn't imagine. Although like there's part of me of trying to think back if I was like in my early 20s, like what that might be like. All pro lemon ton, crab legs equals gold. Yeah. I interviewed in the book Robert Travis, the Alaskan crab boater who was in the Bering Sea for 2 seasons getting crab. So 4 months in Honduras was interesting. Man against the masses. I bet, right? Like that would be absolutely crazy. So yeah, Honduras and that whole, there was this place, El Faro in Honduras. I looked up when I was like 19 or 20, a place that I wanted to go for like a couple months. El Faro, Elfaro. I never did. Damn it, should have. When you're young, you got to do these things for God's sakes. Andrew, to get the oil dividend, you have to live in Alaska from January 1st to December 31st. If you move on January 2nd, you'll not get it. Whoa. Alaska permanent fund oil revenue shared with residents. Vanessa, cool. Whenever DLD glowies get on a stream, half dozen side chats emerge. So Walter, so I'll tell you what, Dark is, I really appreciate Dark. He, was giving me some, terrific advice, right, on promoting the channel. And, there have been three people total in my time as a YouTuber, right, 160 episodes, who made the effort to contact me and give meaningful like suggestions, right, who were interested in the content, but saw areas like that I could expand the content. And Dark was one of those. And I really appreciate that from him. So yeah, I think Dark is a really great guy. All Pro wrote, I know Alaska oil payment from The Simpsons. Yep. Are you 7 feet in? Okay. Vanessa. 6'8". Oh my goodness. So, wow. Sounds like we need to have Vanessa on the show. Welcome to Alaska. Here's $1,000. So an apartment here at Texas Bullet. Hey, Texas Bullet. An apartment complex is several feet over my dad's property line, but he doesn't care. He's friends with the owner. Yeah. So it's interesting because this really bothers them. Like they're younger than I am, and they have a bigger house than we do. It was a doctor who owned several clinics that lived in this house. So it's this pretty prestigious property. And like I said, we're kind of like the quarters next to it, where the cleaning crew would live. I mean, we have a nice house, but like not like this house. And he's And I'm like, when have we ever like not been a good neighbor? Like, and I'm telling you, like, we are having concrete replaced and expanded out on this one side of the house and this garage. And I said that we're all cool here, buddy. Like, don't worry about it. So, but yeah, the back of my property is a butts park land, so it makes my yard look much bigger than it is in the back. It's this really cool effect. So Vanessa wrote, math teacher, I enjoyed the plugs for chaos, bifurcations and such. Hey, cool. Like, those much better than I do. One of the things I did in the velocity of information is I identified chaos by different states of chaos. Not that it necessarily was progressive, like you didn't go from stage 1 to stage 2 to stage 3, but that there were things like extended and comorbid chaos. For example, like the pandemic and civil unrest around the world. Like those would be comorbid, happening at the same time during this extended period of chaos. And then how people react to these things, like there were 4 different levels, which was pretty cool. Like I ran that by a lot of people and they were like, yeah, this makes sense. I'm like, well, darn it. And there was a rheostat type of thing, like chaos like turns up and turns down. Usually in the scientific community, you look at chaos as either being there or not. And I'm like, yeah, that's not really true though. Like there are these distinct levels, which I wrote about. Because I wrote about it and it's published, damn it, it exists. Chaos. Bull Rush, the safety dog. What size is your jacket? Looks like it would fit me. 44 regular, buddy. Always 44. 44 regular, Oscar De La Renta. Swamp, I'd be happy to be your co-host so we can collaborate. Well, I do want to bring in a co-host on the show. I don't know if I do it regular or like to, try to figure this out. But I need to, kind of like today, obviously, Crump and Rich or John and Rich, right? Having that co-host, just helps to make sure that things don't get lost in the chat. And then you have this other take on things, or people like know like your works, they can bring things that are, how about this? And then things that the co-host can bring in. There's a lot of benefits to that. And I have the paid version now of Streamlab, which makes it easier to kind of collaborate, I guess. Like I haven't tried it out yet. Bullrush, Walter to Bullrush. When was the last time you wore a sport coat? So Bullrush, like he's always like very, very slick in place, hair, very well kept. So yeah. Yesterday between 10:07 and 10:13 a.m. Fractals are a great part of mathematics as well. This is from Vanessa. They are part of chaos theory, bifurcations, etc. Yep. Yeah. So, and I'm like, I don't know much about that. So I could get into all of that, right? And it would make me appear like really, oh my God, look, a lot doc is writing here about fractals. When I got into the chaos and the bifurcations and things like that, is kind of at the limit. I think I'm like really great with interviews. When I interview people, and so the thing with the book too is like, and right up front, I state this. I'm like, I interviewed amazing people who don't give interviews to other people. Like they're kind of reclusive, or they're very protective of their image and sharing things. So like, you talk to Larry Lawton, like he's interviewed at like by an A&E special or something like that. Or, Juan Brown isn't going on and doing interviews. I mean, Linda Stone. So you have to build up trust with people when you're doing a book, and then eventually, they'll hopefully agree to interviews, and then you give them the transcripts so they know that you're taking authentically what they said, and then when you write it up in quotes, you make sure, is this exactly, you read this is what you meant, or so that's a really cool part of when I did the interviews. And then when you read the book, right, you're going to have these 10 interviews of these fascinating people, and they all come to life. And all you need to do in this book is you don't need to remember all of these specific terms and all that. You just need to remember, what was the point of Robert Travis, the crab boat guy? Oh yeah, the point of that was like when you're in chaos for 100 days, when you get to like 60 days, your skills get good. You know what to do on the boat, but you kind of, get a little brazen. Like you just think you know it all, and then something catastrophic happens. Like he said, all 4 of his bosses were killed on the boat. So it's like, oh yeah, so there's this thing like you get when you're in chaos, your skills get good and you make good decisions for about 2 months. And then by the third month, it starts to go down with decision making, even though your skills get better. And I have Bureau of Labor statistics to back that up when I wrote about it in the book, like the crab boaters. Usually most of the crab boaters died or were maimed the first 3 weeks out and the last 3 weeks out. So not in between. So what is that? The first 3 weeks while you're learning the job, the last 3 weeks, you're kind of like burned out, or like you think you know it. Like you just think I've got all this figured out. I know what to do. And it's like it hasn't gotten any safer out there. You just, then you make a misstep. Clay Martin gave me a great interview that's in the book too, about when he was a recon Marine, and a couple slip ups, like once they were into extended tours and stuff like that. So StreamYard lets you link team members now. So cool. I got to look into that now that I got the paid version. So Finesse Kitty, you were almost 2,000 subs. Nice. Thanks. Yeah. Well, it was I was at 741 when I started. Thanks for the 30 thumbs up. But you can't give thumbs down anymore. So please don't do that. But I appreciate the 30 thumbs up. And then anytime, any comments, like, if you're writing, hey, like, here's a personal experience, or here's something I saw, like somebody presented information, bad information or whatever, in a very effective way or in a not effective way, or personally, when somebody did this and I was the recipient of information being presented or observed other people, and I'm finally getting home internet set up next week. All right, Swamp Dog, good deal. I'm running a charter here, so that's all good stuff. And yeah, I have a laptop that I want to also work into the mix here, that I want to be able to kind of use that as my search. I mean, I can only do so much, like when I'm running a show. I got 3 monitors in front of me right now. Bacon, is that 44 regular? I think it was my classic uniform size. Yep, 44 regular. Oscar De La Renta. They've been pretty consistent. So, except like when you buy one and someone's had it altered. But man, this is the time in life to be alive and buying a 44 regular Oscar De La Renta sport coat off eBay. This is the best time in life to do that. So they'll look back on this, be like, when was the window to like get a Oscar De La Renta sport coat? It was right in it. It was kind of, that 2020 to 2022 range. Like that was the golden age of used sport coats. And as some of you know, if you've listened to the show, like I can Febreze the life back into a sport coat. Bottle of Febreze can extend a sport coat through an entire semester for me if I can rotate out like 3 of them. Just soak that baby down and let it dry. Febreze does magic, because I do not have a dry cleaner in my hometown anymore, which sucks. Swamp Dog, 350 gigabits a month data before they slow it down. Holy smokes, that is a lot. So I upgraded my phone, by the way. Well, I did. I have my phone, but the phone place has to transfer data to it. And I went with a bigger phone, like a physically bigger phone, with a bigger screen and stuff, because again, I use it as the camera and things like that. And my brother-in-law has the same size phone, so I was able to kind of like check it out and things. I'm like, all right, I'm going for it. I'm going with the bigger phone here. So yeah. Sometimes I wish I could get cable here. I haven't had cable, decent cables since I moved to the missus. That's why I stopped the competitive gaming. I used to be a pro gamer. Holy smokes, before gaming was popular. Man, one of the saddest things I did looking back was getting rid of my Sega Genesis and Sega Saturn on eBay. I don't know, like 5 years ago, but just because I had to use them since college. And I'm like, damn it, that was a big mistake, back with the cartridges. And I should have kept those. I got rid of a nice TV. I gave it to like a relative. It was a flat screen, but it wasn't a high def TV. So it was easy to plug the gaming stuff into. And it worked fine. I just didn't need it. So all these things like, I still have my Intellivision, by the way, which, but yeah, when I was in college, Swamp Dog, my roommates and I used to game all the time. And we had a wall in our living room. And by the way, like the place we stayed was just this horrendous old apartment building. And to give you an idea how bad this place was, the roof leaked, and the owner took a kid's swimming pool. Remember those plastic pools you get like at a Home Depot or Walmart or something, plastic kids pool. And he cut the bottom of the pool out, and he kind of took tar and he tarred it over the hole in the roof. So he'd come up to this building, and this pool was basically laminated or glued the bottom of this pool to cover this hole. And our when we moved in, there was a couch that was on bricks, so we just kept it. And then the single pane glass, so in winter, be 0 degrees, and the winds would actually be moving the curtains back and forth. But as a college guy, it's fine. But anyway, we would game like crazy, and up on the wall, we'd write the scores. We'd play like Madden football, stuff like that, 93, and write the scores up on the wall. And when we moved out, we had to repaint. We had to paint the wall. So it took several coats to like get over. We just write up there with marker. The whole wall was just scores of all these games that we played. It's really, it was pretty awesome. I won the Super Bowl, by the way, 55-48. So had a big lead. Had to hang on to win. That game was supposed to be on cable access, and at the last moment, the cable access in the college town back in 93 said, "Oh, we can't air this," but because it's a copyright infringement. But they were this close. Like they had loaned us because they always run these ads, and there were college kids making these shows, kind of like a Wayne's World type thing. That was before the internet, right? So you could have your own show. They were desperate for people to like put shows on cable access. So we were going to do like our Sega football season or the Sega Super Bowl or whatever. So it would have been great. Their loss. Vanessa, 2 parallel fiber optic lines are laid on 2 sides of my location. I'm actively searching for a way to connect. All right. Right when sponsors were starting to come on board. So Swamp Talk. Vanessa Key, 932 megabits incoming on the coax wire. So is that good? I haven't checked usually pretty good stuff here as far as like my connection, because I'm in the city. I can't believe the amount of money gamers make. Yeah, isn't that crazy? Like, who would have thought, you could have a career as a gamer, and then also, you could be a professional YouTuber, or influencer, or that you could have a solid second income from that, right? Like I know 3 people that is their sole income, and they do very, very well. And in addition to that, they have, like a Patreon type thing, and a couple other gigs going on. But I know three people. One does outdoors stuff, like goes to state parks and stuff like that, and is built up. And this like double the money that he was making before. And then one of my other friends is strongly into 6 figures, and then my third friend is probably into the low 6 figures and growing. And this is great for them. But who would have saw that? And that's the thing too. Like, I talk with my superintendents in these classes and aspiring school leaders, and I said, so there was a bill in the Wisconsin legislature, and it was that all kids need to be taught cursive handwriting. This was this fall. So we were talking about that, and I'm like, and a couple of people be like, well, that's a good thing. I'm like, well, why? Like, how about like every kid needs to know the basics of like how to be a, social media influencer or something, because at some point, like all of, their communicate, their employment stuff, all this stuff. This is a viable part of it'll be a viable part of their life. Like, that they should know how to do, like a web page, or how to set up or how to edit some video. Like, wouldn't that make sense? Like, versus like, you got to learn cursive, I'm like, am I old school here, or am I new school, or what's going on here? Swamp Dog, that was one of my first accomplishments when I actually was proud of myself, was earning my entry to the Cyber Athletes Professional League International Championship. Holy smokes, buddy. Congratulations. That rocks. That, I thought about this when I was in college. I had a couple friends, and we were talking like, what if there was like this Madden football like championship? Like, you could have it go from college to college, and they would have to bring in, like the monitors and the systems and stuff, and then you'd pay. And it was modeled after like this Gus Macker basketball thing, which I played in back in the 80s and 90s. So it was this traveling like basketball tournament, and you would enroll with 3 other people or something. But like, what if it was just like, and then you would just play, and it would go through these brackets and stuff, and then at the very end, like it'd be in an auditorium, like projected up for everybody to see. That's before like the big screen stuff. So, yeah. I wonder how it would be today. Like, I remember when I went back to get my master's degree at Superior back in 2001, I stayed in the dorms. And at that time, I was like 29 years old, I think 29, 30. And, or was it? Yeah, I was like 29. And I remember, because I was, still playing man football. And there was a kid up there, like an 18-year-old, and he like dominated the dorms. And the word got out that I was good at Madden, and this kid was also this protege, right, with Madden. And I think he had asked to play a couple times, and I was like, I don't know. And finally, like, I agreed. So we got together, and it was in the lounge at the thing, and there were like there had to be like 20 people there, because there were like people my age who were like going back to pick up degrees, and the younger people. And anyway, I won that game because it was the third quarter. He threw an interception, and he had been kind of pressing. I mean, we were like tied going back and forth, and I think he was kind of getting impatient. He threw over the middle, and I was able to pick him off. And I didn't turn the ball over at all. So he's real angry when he left that. And I'm like, yes, old people prevail in this. Old man gets the win here. Walking out, like, yeah, that was great. My old Sega days. So, all right, let me kind of catch up here. So Vanessa wrote, I gave my Atari 2600 all my games to a coworker, and I shipped out of Alaska in 1987. I bet you regret that. I know let's see, like, would have shipped it to some location where you could get it now. Yeah. God, and I had friends that had Atari, and I remember, just the hours that we'd play these games. I miss that. I do. I really long for just playing all those crazy games, Sonic the Hedgehog and stuff like that. And oh man, that was the last competition I went to. Well, at least you did it though, buddy. Like, good for you. Damn, Doc, did he install a pool noodle instead of a toilet seat too? Oh my goodness. Pong. Yeah, I remember Pong. My friend Walter, who lived above a restaurant his parents owned in our town, had Pong. So I was like, oh my goodness, it's a cool game. Vanessa wrote, I worked with the world champion in Zaxxon arcade game. He would flip the score on one court. Holy smokes. I remember that game at Rib River Ballroom. So Zaxxon. Bacon to Walter, I think my mom's old Tandy had Pong. Yeah, remember the Tandy computers at Radio Shack? So yeah, Tandy or Walter right there from Radio Shack. TRS-80, all that stuff. It's pretty crazy. So Somto, you were describing the early days of competitive gaming and when LAN parties, right? Yeah, were a thing, bringing the gear and setting it up together, connected on local network. Yep. Yeah, I participated in a couple of those. So, God, it's so weird. It's just, yeah, man. I customize my controllers too. Like, I would put artwork on them and stickers, and just so they look really cool, like stuff. Oh man, I wrote my own playbooks. Like when I did man football, like I had a notebook, and then I would design my own. So I knew how many clicks, like, you get the 24-second, clock and stuff like that. So one of my roommates like stole it once. So then, like, when we got to a game, I was like, I don't have this memorized. Vanessa wrote, once ran the underground work Doom network games back at a certain company. Whoa. Mud's multi-user dungeons, text-based games on various mainframe machines. Holy smokes. Sounds like a masculine geek. Like you'd have a great conversation there with their dungeons stuff. Cool. Swamp Dog wrote, all my favorite gaming was on custom unofficial servers. I only played on the official servers for ranking for competition. So Vanessa wrote, as a freshman in high school, I attempted to buy Texas Instrument first 16-bit CPU. I wrote to them, etc. The TI-99, I think it was. Oh, that's cool. Well, Vanessa, that's really cool. Yeah, I remember the TI. I remember the TI calculators, right? Like, and they were starting to come out with the graphing calculators when I was in high school, and it was such a big thing. So, holy smokes, yeah, Texas Instruments was such a big thing. I think they still do like quite a bit of business, but to have that graphing calculator, and just think, right? Who in the world remember the old things of you got to know this because you won't have a calculator with you all the time. It's like, well, yeah, now I have a calculator with me. I also have a map, a GPS, I have a recorder, I have a video studio. Like I have all this with me, like right now, plus an entire encyclopedia. I mean, isn't that crazy? Isn't it just to think about that? You know, the power of your phone to do that. So, oh God, that's just wow. Here's Bacon putting the link to Masculine Geek. So they have their shows on Wednesday night, Masculine Geek podcast. And I invented the protest rush strategy. Will not explain. That's bull rush. So, whoa. Hey, here's our friend Sass to Vanessa. I ran NCR mainframes in 1984. So Sass again will be a guest, not a guest, be the guest on next week's Safety Doc podcast. Monday night, 8:15 on December, what is that, 4th? 6th, December 6th. I'm kind of in this, like, I can't rationalize that, like, Christmas is less than a month away. I mean, we haven't had snow yet because some of that's just kind of forced. When you're in Wisconsin, when I grew up in northern Wisconsin, you know, it's very defined, you know, it's snow, cold, stuff like that. And I'm in southern Wisconsin, so like sometimes it snows by winter, you know, by Christmas, sometimes it doesn't. But I'm psychological this year. I'm just not like recognizing, oh, you know, well, less than, you know, we're 4 weeks away from Christmas. That just doesn't seem right. Doesn't register with me. So I don't know. It's kind of like this year's different. I don't know why that is exactly. So Vanessa wrote, HP Hewlett-Packard calculators. I bought my first while stationed at Indian Head Naval Station, Maryland, up in DC on a weekend. So, so Vanessa, one thing with Hewlett-Packard, an interesting safety story as an aside is they had some of their, I don't know if it was original software or some of their original prototypes. I'd have to go back, but this story's out there. When they had the wildfires in California, some of their critical early infrastructure examples were just kept out like in a shed, like in a shed where you'd keep a rake and a lawnmower next to the building, and it got destroyed. And looking back, they're like, why in the hell was that ever out there? Like, it doesn't make any sense. And yeah, so something that had to do with the early prototypes or code or something that was, and it wasn't replicable. I mean, that was it. And it literally was, yeah, in the shed next to the rake and whatever, and it got burned up. So, I mean, they're like, oh, damn it. You missed my comment earlier at the Safe Talk. Are you busy Thursday evening, 7 p.m. Central Time? I did miss that. And I don't know right now. So let me think and get back to you. So Tuesday nights is a Mallard podcast. Wednesday night is Thursday nights is Old Humble Distilling Company. So let me think about 7 p.m. Central, though, is typically a good time for me. So not saying no, just saying let me figure this out a little bit. So I do have this kind of nebulous schedule, which is a plus of being retired, basically. So don't make me Zerglegs. Hey, it's Sport Brand. This is one of the best logos on the internet right there. Sport Brand, coming to you from Sport Brand. Brought to you by Sport Brand. Shelter in Paradise. Did you construct additional pylons? Whoa. I learned machine language programming as an IBM card reader system. Holy smokes. So Vanessa has a ton of information. So Vanessa, this would be great to talk about also, like living in Alaska and this transition and the early stuff with technology and how you kind of saw that and how it's impacted maybe what you did. My email is available from my website, which is here. I get a lot of spam email and it's just the way that life is. So I have to go through, a lot of spam. But that is, you can find it if you go to like contact, and I'd be interested in, if you're interested, talking about, hey, look, could be on the show and here's what I could talk about, because that sounds pretty cool. So Swamp, would you be willing to come on? Look at this. Now Swamp is in there and he's already poaching a potential guest. So look at this. The old Swamp Dog there is now poaching. So, which I'm kidding. It seemed like I was doing that with Masculine Geek, because I think for 3 episodes in a row, like after the person was a Masculine Geek, I had them on my show. So it's kind of the circuit, right? It's kind of like doing late night with Fallon and Seth Meyers and, working your way around. But that's funny. Bull Rush is sport brand. Except for geometry and trig, I haven't needed anything I learned in high school. I dropped trigonometry. It's a fact, to take plastics. And to this day, I still have the sled. I made it, the fiberglass sled I made in plastics. And I still have, I have 3 things. I have a paperweight that has a padlock inside of it. It's clear plastic. And I have a duck. So felt well worth it. 7 p.m. Thursdays are free for you. Good to know, buddy. So, oh my goodness, this guy. So don't you, isn't it? I don't know. Sorry. I don't know the whole lineup of shows right now. So is that when you've got Let 'em Burn? So sorry. So that's why I'm not committing to anything right now. So this is the biggest space-time thing for me. I wouldn't encroach on any of those shows. Retired USAF in 1996. All right, United States Air Force. Thank you, Vanessa, for your service. Thank you. I feel fine. It is a combination of low humidity and talking for a while down here. Swamp has asked me as well. So Swamp's a good guy. So thanks, my dude. All right. So a few things here. If you have not subscribed to this channel from your primary account or your 7 ancillary YouTube accounts, please do so. And share this, right? And post a comment down below. I will respond, but hey, that really helps out the algorithm to post a comment. So I see we are up to 743 or 743 subscribers. So yeah, that is cool. So thank you so much. Vanessa, a teacher's job is to open your eyes to all math you see every day around you. So I had to do some pretty intricate math when I figured out the landscape around my house. I still kept the diagram and the formulas I used to. It all worked out. Safety Doc, fountain pens are better than ballpoint pens. That's like a, what is it? The Gatorade sucks there with a Bobby Boucher and the Water Boy. Man, they probably are, but I love my my Mont Blanc. Well, I was going to reach down and try to get the pen out, but put it away. The ballpoint Mont Blanc pen that I have that I sign books with, that thing is awesome. Got it at an auction. One of my friends who is a pen connoisseur found it and said, "This is the one you want." And then when I ordered the ink from Mont Blanc, they sent it in this real formal packaging and this letter thanking me for the ink and the order and stuff like that. It's real upscale, buddy. It's sport brand. You can gotta have a good logo like that, like the Safety Doc. That logo's been around for quite a while. Still, it's holding true. Yeah, Andrew, thank you to Kitty. You bet. Hey, it's our good friend Solitude Server. You rock, Steve. Solitude Server, you rock also. So I appreciate that. I know I've seen you on some other shows and over at DLD and Bacon's shows. So thanks, buddy. You've got some interesting takes on things, but I think you're definitely fun and enjoying life, I guess. So cool. Appreciate that. This is from our good friend Swamp. Hey, make sure you all smash that like button. Thank you. I appreciate that. Is our Bacon. Funny enough, mathematics was the first class my aircraft maintenance college taught. The fact that you can run through basic addition and subtraction all the way to trigonometry should be telling. Very cool. I had a very mean high school like geometry and teacher and stuff like that. Just not a nice person. Very he kind of yelled. So Vanessa wrote, Miss My Trekker space pens have been faithful companions of a variety of climates. I used to have one of those. I don't know. I think I sold it like at a rummage sale or something. My space pen. But Bulrush, I thought quills and ink bottles were where it's at. When I wrote School of Airs, a couple of people were telling me to get fountain pen and sign books that way. And I was like, no. But the thing is, you want to sign it with a good pen so the ink doesn't fade, because here, as an example, I threw out this pitch. It's dated 7/31/2019, this opening pitch at Wade Stadium in Duluth minor league baseball game. You can't even see the writing on it because it's faded off. It says first pitch Wade Stadium. And it was just some cheap pen, they had at the ballpark that the guy was using. So it's too bad, because I don't know what to do with it. I could try to touch it up, or I could just let it fade away. And, oh man, I don't know. So what do you do? And Vanessa saying, I learned the platonic solids in 6th grade. Whoa, that wasn't in my 6th grade. Boris to Sport Brand. I learned more math working construction during summer break back in high school. Yep. Yeah. I'm with you. Gotta get ready for bed. Got double shift tomorrow at the deer processing. All right. Oh, Swamp Dog. Well, thanks for being here, buddy. Yep. And I look for, you contacted me, so we'll be in contact. So yeah, thanks. And thanks, Mrs. Swamp Dog, for signing on. Night Swamp Dog. And cool. So, all right, let me just hang around here, guys. Let me do the recap. So we were talking today about the language, the lexicon of crisis communication. And if you have bad news to share, professionally or personally, start out with, I have bad news to share. Then pause. And then state what the bad news is. And then, that you're saying, I have been informed. It's an I statement. And then you are telling people what to do. Wait here, or more information in 45 minutes at the same location. And do not embellish your own personal experiences in this. Nobody cares. And it just eats up time, and you need to get right to the point. When you find yourself where you might be starting to say, I'm sorry, this person lost their life or something, rethink that, right? They had their life taken. They had their life taken by cancer, or, they had their life taken in this ATV accident or drowning or whatever it is. They had their life taken. That connects with people at a much deeper level. When you say, again, you have a person who lost their life, it assigns us kind of culpable, like there was an opportunity, or there's an opportunity to gain this life back. So it might seem like a small thing, but again, I've talked to several parents who have where their children's lives were taken, and they said the difference in hearing those terms really sinks in immediately. Crash, tragedy, attack, everything can be a tragedy, so don't use it. Be authentic in what you're communicating. Again, the Waukesha Parade massacre that happened 2 Sundays ago. That wasn't a crash, right? And also, tragedy is a very weak way to describe that. So tragedy is an easy way out. So yeah, and those are, just kind of the things in crisis communication, important communication. So kind of wrapping up here on the chat. Well, a couple things is one, thank you for the thumbs up. I see there's 31, so appreciate that big time. Also, if if you subscribe, if you share, if you do comments, I think the biggest thing right now, as I look forward to the release of the Velocity of Information, April 15th, and this channel, kind of the two things that need to merge at that time would be like the 4,000 hours of viewing time, which means like some of you will be like, go check out some of the stuff the doc is produced in the past. I mean, there are a host of fasting shows. The one I had Justin Dooley on a few years ago, we were talking about like winter in Wisconsin, like what are things like you should keep with you in your vehicle, and we brought things to the show and stuff like that. It's really a cool show. I had a drone guy on, Preston Rice. We did 2 shows, and he was showing me like commercial drone, like here's how you could search and do search and rescue, or not rescue, but you could search with a drone. So like he's setting it up and showing and stuff. So like it was a really cool episode, or 2 episodes. Preston Rice. Going back to some of the earlier episodes, I had a person on who had a search and rescue dog, Sierra. So she's talking about, I get a call, like I go home, we got something kind of packed, we go to the site, the dog can only like kind of sniff for like 30 minutes, and you have to like reset the dog, like dog needs a break, and otherwise they lose the scent. I mean, all the stuff I didn't know. And so yeah, these interviews, like Robert Travis and the Crab Boat, and Clay Martin, Larry Lawton, America's Biggest Jewel Thief, and Nikolai Razvayu, like what was happening there in Soviet Union day after Chernobyl, and like you're told to bike, and they're washing down the roads and soaping them up and hosing them down, and holy smokes, my God, he snuck away with a transistor radio to find out what was happening. Oh yeah, there's radiation being detected in Sweden. So yeah, I mean, those are all great shows. What I try to do is always, with the blog posts and when I do the shows, there's always like something, hopefully like a new, like you're going to get out of that. And then if it's just a body of work, right, there'll be little pieces that'll just kind of skill stack or just kind of add up, and there'll be some, some memorable, shows. You'll be like, that was a really cool thing. Or this whole thing of positive recency. I did a show on that. And it was a thing of like, like if you're gambling and you're at a roulette wheel and you get red 10 times in a row, you're probably going to keep gambling, even though the chance of red or black is 50-50 for the next one. But these people, this positive recency really messes with people in their decision-making, when it's like always kind of a 50-50 chance of doing things. So recognize that in your life, and positive, are you just succumbing to positive recency, or are you really looking at the odds around you, what's happening? So yeah, there's cool shows. And like I said, this upcoming week from today, SAST 1 Too Many is on. He's going to talk about life after a traumatic brain injury, and then also how he reached a point with contemporary media where he's like, I need to get rid of this, and here's how I got to get my information. We'll also probably talk with SAST about his Cannonball Run stuff. So he is well known on the East Coast for up to 200 miles per hour from work to home and home to work. So literally starts his vehicle with a foot on the accelerator, car in drive, turning the key, all in one motion. So as the moment ignition hits, he's already up to like 70 miles an hour. So yeah, he's known for the Cannonball Run, always safe. So he's got people out ahead, knows what's going on. But yeah, the Cannonball Run. So as you might know, there's a movie, The Cannonball Run. There's also Smokey and the Bandit, both those based upon SAST. So I don't believe he gets any royalties. But if you go to Wikipedia, it was entered there for a while and it was taken off. But really, people know. They're like, it's SAST. It's a guy that inspired Smokey and the Bandit. So sometimes people pull up like their Trans Ams and they'll be like, hey, will you sign this with a magic marker? He's like, I guess. I don't know, man. They're like, no, sign it. Like right here on the hood, big magic marker. SAST 1 Too Many. And then they're like, look at this. And then they take it to shows and people come around. And they're like, was that really Sast went to me? And they're like, hell yes, look at it. I took a picture. And there he is. They're like, I guess it is. And then everybody kind of gathers in that area. So it's really something. I mean, it really is. And the guy deserves it. He's just a cool guy. He is a good guy. He's a really good guy. I'm glad to have him on the show. Yeah, I am Raz there, of course, with the Cannonball Run. So it's one of these things, like, if you talk about it enough, it just starts to become the given story. Like, you could take that at some point, and if you had some other people saying it, it could just become, yeah, this was something that Sast did. He is the Cannonball Run guy. I'd be like, well, yeah, it exists in the show that Doc did, and then it exists over here, and this person talked, and Swamp talked about it. I guess he is the Cannonball Run guy. So, God. So that's is that rough on the drive? Yeah, Swamp Dog. So, yeah, I don't know, Sast. I mean, I don't know what he runs. Probably zero weight oil, like to really thin things down, full synthetic. I don't. But he was telling me, he said, one of my cars, I had the lane departure on one of the new vehicles when he was doing Cannonball Run. So like when he was kind of like getting a little sleepy, like go out, and then it'd kick him back, and he's like, you thought something was wrong with the tires, right? So no, it's the lane. You got to turn all that stuff off, like when you're doing Cannonball Run. You get all the sensors, turn them off. Cannonball Run, not really best in these new cars. It's kind of more of like the 90s, like a Buick Lucerne would be a good Cannonball Run. like a that 3800 engine there, like you put extra gas, that would definitely make it work. People that are prone to gambling will rationalize continuing going by saying the odds of being the favor eventually, though, remain 50. Yeah, right. There's been the studies like on gamblers where the thought is perpetually, right, that you will eventually hit it and then even out. So you just keep going and going and going. So that way in the stock market too. Like I used to trade, like, I don't know, 20 years ago, pretty aggressively in stocks, and you'd get this downward spiral. And it's interesting because the thing happening today, well, so like General Electric back years ago, I owned that stock, and then it just kind of didn't do anything, and it eventually just kind of kept going down. But so then, like long after I was out of it, like GE, which you think would be a pretty good stock, right? They make locomotives and airplane engines, and how the hell is that not a good stock? But apparently it's just not. And so GE did a reverse split. So then instead of having their stock at $20, they said for every 5 shares, we're going to create one. So now it's like worth $100 to make it look like it was more valuable. Well, that didn't work. And then like just recently in the last few months, they said they're splitting off into like 3 companies. And that's always a bad sign. Like, right, typically when you see companies that split off companies or split into multiple companies that are traded, like that's usually a bad, not always, but like in GE's case, I don't know if that's going to be a good thing. But anyway, it's like, God damn it, I don't know where this company, even these weird, crazy stuff. Andrew said, CNN today, Chernobyl was a tragic and unexpected conclusion to a safety drill. So, wow. Well, what? I don't even know if that's authentic, right? I don't, yeah. First of all, right, anytime you see the word tragic, like, let's get rid of that. It wasn't intentional. I guess it was unexpected, but yeah. There were a lot of personal, very bad decisions that were made and then just compounded in not following protocols in Chernobyl. One of the really fascinating parts of Chernobyl too is to research the miners, miners, that were brought in to like tunnel underneath to try to put boron and stuff. So it was like a death sentence to do that. I mean, holy smokes. Sastroid, run without oil slows me down too much. Yeah, get rid of that. And run without an air filter. He's like, straight in. I'm just gonna let it go. So I'd use all-wheel drive for Cannonball. Wow. Yeah. All-wheel drive. And then that is whoa. Sass, too many friction welding. Whoa. So I did too, apparently, according to the engine ship. Oh no, buddy. So I know you were sharing that your engine kind of seized up on you there, so loss of coolant at the reactor bath. I remember 3 Mile Island, and then also the Fukushima, plus Chernobyl. The chapter in the book about Chernobyl is really awesome. It's not specifically getting deep into the reactor stuff, but it's talking about Nikolai, who was a Soviet national cyclist, had to cycle, even though like the Western cyclists peace race, which was kind of like the equivalent to the Olympics, were dropping out, and he's seeing all this stuff, and he's like, "Is this like a death sentence? Like to be out here with this, radiation coming down, and 20 years old, and if you like bail out of that, they would just put you right up in Afghanistan in the military, or they kill you. I mean, it's just straight up. You have no choice." So you just went and crossed your fingers. And they drink wine. All of the cyclists, they thought if they drink wet red wine, it would prevent them from getting radiation poisoning. So talks about that in the interview. The coaches are drinking red wine too. So bacon to Robert, I'm still partial to front wheel drive on long distance runs for efficiency reason. So Robert, anybody ever in New York and need automotive help, look me up. I'm sure most of you in other states are willing to help. So cool. I wish you were like, hey, anybody here in Wisconsin? I'd be like, whoa. So to know somebody who is good ethics, right? And then also has the talent and couple with that. Oh my God, it is so important. So, wow. I bet, yeah, your neighbors and the people, that work with you, Robert, I bet they're very thankful that you're there. We had radiation. This is Vanessa falling on the Arctic after Chernobyl. People forget about this. So I brought up the headlines from like my hometown newspaper, and then like the Milwaukee Journal and the Duluth newspaper, Duluth Superior, and they were picking up radiation right in those areas. And I remember, so I talked about this before, but I lived a block away from the baseball field in my town, little town, only baseball field there was. And it was Little League, and we were all called up for a meeting. So we're sitting there in the bleachers, and the dad who's running the Little League says, yeah, there's radiation apparently, which is falling on the field. And I guess, I don't know if it rains or whatever, we might have to cancel games. And they had one Geiger counter, one radio, and it was from the high school, like from the science. And so they were supposed to go and do this sweep, and it would always like click no matter what. Like there's always, radioactive particles coming through the air. But from outer space and things like that. But like, I remember we're like, what? And then I also remember thinking like, I live a block away from that. Like, so what's in my yard? Like, what is the deal here? And, then it just kind of went away, but it didn't have like the media hype take. God, could you imagine like how the media would take that and run with it today? I mean, it would be, that everybody would have, and I actually, I maybe they would just quiet that down. So Seth wrote, Nikolai is a good dude. Yeah, Nikolai is. And when I interviewed Nikolai, that was over, I have a footnote or an endnote in the book, like over 4 months and multiple interviews, we're completely different time zones. And so, we worked extensively. And then, so the chapter, that's an interesting chapter because you can definitely sense Nikolai and kind of like the strong, Soviet narrative coming through in that interview. It's really intriguing. And yeah, so like people who have read the book, the reviewers and stuff, has a powerful chapter. And I'm like, yeah, and we had to consolidate that down. But it's still, I think it's the biggest interview in the book. Maybe it goes over like 7-8 pages. It's really good. Vanessa saying the radiation showed up under 3 days. So yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy stuff. So, hey, look at this here, Bacon. Here's the episode of the Soviet cyclist. So that's cool. Yeah, that one's out there in audio too, if you want to download leveled audio with Nikolai. Nikolai lives in Australia. So like he had been sharing over the last few months of all of the lockdowns and restrictions they've been under. And yeah, I mean, it's really intense. So, whoa. Use the counter in basements here in Northeast. So, I was a gearhead back in the day. This is SAS, but for some time now, I'm just pragmatic when it comes to cars. Yeah, I was never a gearhead, but I used to like work on my own car, and I just don't do that anymore. Swampy, get back in bed before the boogeyman gets. Oh my God, there's Walter. Swampy got out of bed. I've started to drink this chilled coffee. I never did it until like last month. I saw it on the shelf, and I'm like, I like coffee, but I don't know if I would like chilled coffee. So it's okay. Like, it's one of those things I think I'll acquire a taste for, but I think it still has like the same amount of caffeine, and so I'm trying to like work that in. But I do live not far from a gas station, so like on my Face Validity Fridays, I always stop there for, I shouldn't say this, but donuts and coffee, and that's my breakfast before Face Validity Fridays. So sugar and caffeine to like zap me up. Wankel engines, horsepower to displacement, burning oil after 1,000 or 100,000 miles or so. So yeah, I remember those of the rotary engines. And so my stuff, guys, is over at safetyphd.com, which is right there. Let's see. And so yeah, safetyphd.com. And also my 2 PPS presentations. Hey, thanks, Saltude. My 2 PBS presentations in 2013, 2019, either there or you just go on the internet and type in my name plus PBS. Pretty easy to find. And then obviously School of Errors. It's a great book. I mean, if you're like a last minute gift, you're like, hey, you got a relative and they've got like, a couple kids in school. It's like, here's School of Errors. And I know the author of this book. And if you're a Seinfeld fan, Danny Woodburn, who played Mickey Abbott on Seinfeld. Oh, Danny Woodburn right there wrote the foreword for the book. So, which is cool. It's really outstanding way to launch into the book. But yeah, I mean, actually, I know someone just in the last few days here sent me an email and said, hey, I just ordered the book for sister-in-law who's a teacher, and they've got a couple of kids here, so they do a lot of crazy safety stuff in their district, so wanted to get this to them. I'm like, yeah. And I mean, there are a lot of really kind of punchy stories in here. Really, it's well done. Like it's respectful, but it's also has an edge to it, so you're going to be like, whoa, wow, like that's maybe not what I expected, but it's right on. So, and if you have read the book, right, please leave a review on Amazon. It has 44 reviews, and it's been at 44 reviews for a long time. And I would love for it to be at 50 reviews by the time Velocity of Information comes out. Amazon reviews are big because when people, once again, the whole thing with algorithms, once you get into that 40s, it's kind of a marker, 50s something, and eventually. But I think the book, I know people like that own it, right, and they've read it and haven't left reviews yet. So I'm just like, come on, please. I mean, it doesn't have to be more than a couple sentences if you've read it, and to let people know. So Vanessa wrote, whoa, anyone look up the liquid piston engine? The company's in Bloomfield. No. This is kind of weird too, like how everything seems to be like really pushed to electric fast, like all the TV commercials. And, like I have a friend who's building a house, and he doesn't have an electric vehicle, but when they built the house, they put the electric charging stations in the garage, or wired it up so like there would be the station, because they're just like, it'll be here. So I'm just like, it seems to be moving, I don't know, at a forced pace, I guess, as I'm looking and trying to figure where's all this electricity generation going to come from, and some of these other things. But it's kind of like these transitions from just-in-time manufacturing to 3D printing. are kind of happening really fast. But maybe I guess they've always happened fast. It's maybe uncomfortable because I'm just used to the way that things are, which is kind of that Taurus, right? It's the philosophy of information. Once you get really comfortable in things, you start to resist change. So very cool. All right. So yeah, please comments below, thumbs up. This Monday night shows a week from today is SAST one too many, and I will have that up soon in the next couple of days, so you can just like ping it as a reminder. And Friday, join me at 9:00 in the morning. I will have my donuts and my coffee. And last Friday, the gas station I go to, like they were out of the coffee I usually get, and like everything was drained down, so I had to like mix together like 7 different coffees to fill up the 24-ounce cup. It was awful, and I had to even put decaf in. I was almost going to say, like, can this just be free? Because like none of the stuff over there is full, and this is just this weird concoction. And I'm sure they probably would have said yes, but I was just hoping it would taste better than it did. So yeah, Face Validity Friday. So what Face Validity Friday is, and now we're about a month into it. Face validity is a core concept of my book, The Velocity of Information. Face validity, in terms, if you're explaining it to somebody, it's saying, hey, if you're out in a snowstorm and you have a thermometer, it says 88 degrees, and you're shivering and snow's falling, either that thermometer is broken, it's what it's measuring, that face validity isn't right, or like your senses are obscured. One of those two things is happening. So face validity is when whatever is authentically happening around you, what you're observing, what you're experiencing, isn't matching what measurements are, what the media is telling you, or these type of things. Or so you can see it in headlines, or like face validity would be a headline that says, this Thanksgiving meal cost the same as like last year's Thanksgiving meal. You're like, whoa, like face validity, like here's my receipt. I went to the grocery store and like this stuff is more expensive. I know that's not true. Or travel this year will cost less. And you're like, well, that's weird because gas is almost $4 a gallon. And I know it was, so you're like, that doesn't make sense on face validity. And face validity, we all detect. We all have that face validity detector, and we just kind of override it over the years. We just we default to listening to what other people say as the quote unquote experts or the sources. That's that whole media coverage of 60 seconds and going with it. So what we do on Face Validity Fridays, and people, send me some articles, and you can do that too, or post down below and say, hey, like, Doc, maybe consider this for Face Validity article, Face Validity Friday. Here's an article. And then we go through, 4 to 5 articles, and we analyze them, and we say, does this match face validity? Sometimes they do, and other times they don't. And again, the more you do that and you just expect that from yourself and you demonstrate that for other people, they pick up on that. They will look at you and the way that you do things, and it will, they'll change their habits. And you really get to be known as a truth broker with face validity, or like just to remember, ask that question. Does this make sense? Like, does this, oftentimes other people are thinking the same thing, but they're just not going to, be out there and make, they're just not going to rock the boat. Right. But if you're just like, does this really make sense? Like I was talking about, when I was on John Crump Live, I said, there was a school district during the pandemic, and they were doing fire drills, but they were doing socially distanced fire drills. So students would line up, or I don't know if they line, but the students would be in classroom, and then the teacher, when there was a fire drill, the teacher would say, okay, go. And then the teacher would go 1001, 1002, 1003, then go. Next student would go. So the students would always be spaced apart as they left the building. So it's face validity. It's like, does that make sense? Right? Okay, I understand the whole social distance stuff, but you got to fire in a building. You got to get people out. That's your priority. It's not that everybody gets out in 8 minutes. It's everybody gets out fast. And so this whole thing of, the socially distanced fire drills was out there for a little bit, until people from a face validity standpoint kind of just like, well, this doesn't make sense. This is crazy. Like, why in the world would you do this? Well, okay. So And Andrew, it's not expensive. It's a sign of a thriving economy. Yeah. Yikes. And property taxes arrive, I think, in 2 weeks here. So I've been checking online to try to get the sticker shock of what that'll be. Got to pull up. Looks interesting just from the search results. So John Crump Live. Yep. Yeah, John. So I was on his show and with Flying Rich today. So it was a great show. I've been following them for quite some time. They're only about 10 miles from me. Whoa, go. CRS Firearms is 30 minutes up the road from me. So for those of you who follow CRS Firearms, so it's always kind of interesting when you find other people in your area. When I was last year, when they had the riots happening in Madison, Wisconsin, a lot of people are contacting me and they were like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, it's not. It's like 40 miles away from me." I'm like, "Okay here," but yeah. So, all right. Well, everybody, I am going to call it a night here on the Safety Doc, and this is episode 160. So again, safetyphd.com. Exercise face validity. Use "I observed" when you're talking with people, and to echo what Dark says at the end of his shows, which is spot on. I mean, demonstrate kindness to people. One, you don't know kind of what their day or what their life has been when you interface with them. A couple kind words, a smile, offering to, I don't know, hold the door, pick up some cat litter, something like that, can have a pretty meaningful impact. I was talking to a friend who was telling me about their son who was in college and worked at a I don't know, fast food place or whatever. And he said his son just was talking about how angry people were, like at drive-throughs, throwing stuff up at windows and swearing and cursing. And, he just was, this appalling behavior. And just how people, people kind of seem to lose their minds. But he also talked about, he said, the people that I remember, like, on a shift or something, is someone who just says, thank you, or somebody who, has a fun little quip or something like that. And, so those are the things too. Like, you never know if you can interact with people. Just, be nice to people. So it'd be nice just as I smack this microphone. This microphone's like, oh my God, what's going on here? So Vanessa said 4 firearm makers are within 25 miles of me. So, whoa. So this is from Saston. This is a good way. Have a good evening. Thanks all. I know the doc really appreciate it. I do. I appreciate it. So yeah, thanks. Like I said, I had taken some time off from the show as I was writing the book. And then as I started things up again, it's been really great to have people come back in and to bring this momentum back. And I look forward to it. Like, I really enjoy putting together shows and the blog post and getting this bigger body of work. And I love the chat. Thank you everybody for participating. And every once in a while, someone contacts me and they say, hey, like, I found this specific, show or whatever, and I'm using this in a paper I'm doing or some presentation or whatever, and how they incorporate things. And some people like follow everything. There are a couple of school safety people who, listen to every show out there. And I'm like, oh, hey, thanks for doing that. So let's look. You never know when you're going to see them again, right? Have a good evening. Thanks, Robert. Thanks for being over here. And Bacon, thanks, buddy. Oh, there was an episode, when the Madison stuff. That was we had a few people on, including Nick Schulander, who we thought his door was kicked down and that night, but it was okay. That was a wild episode. Yeah, the police scanners and things were going. That was a time very uncertain. Hey, thank you for the show. Thanks, Vanessa. It's very informative. Thank you. And hope you return a week when we have SAST 1 Too Many on next week. Sleep tight, everybody. All right. And Vanessa. All right. So let me do the going out thing here. So still learning this, but all right, I'm going to do this and then we'll be done when it's 58 seconds, but this is how I do the intro. So we'll do the outro like this. And here we go. Thank you, everybody. Very sincerely mean that. Thank you.
Welcome to the Safety Doc Podcast with author, radio host, and nationally recognized safety expert, Dr. David Perrodin. Join us each week as we discuss the best and most bizarre practices in safety preparation and crisis response. Follow Dr. Perrodin on Twitter @SafetyPhD. And remember, the truth